Hello and welcome guys. Make yourselves comfortable and enjoy. This is Affinity, Chaos. Chapter 561. Ellis was surprised when a guard came to call him, saying he was summoned by his uncle. He felt a sudden uneasy feeling, but this was only because he was scared. Could Gray have been captured? He asked himself as he walked towards the hall. No. If he were, it would have caused a big ruckus. Then why is Uncle calling me if not that? He looked in the direction that led to his father's room. It hadn't been up to 5 minutes since Gray left, yet he had been summoned by his uncle. To be honest, he found it odd. When he got to the door, he sensed a different presence inside, something he had never felt before. He didn't think much of it though. After all, this was his family's compound, one of the most powerful families in the entire Aurora continent. Creak. The huge door to the hall opened slowly as Ellis's figure entered the hall. All eyes turned to him. He felt a particular gaze staring at him, as if it wanted to look at his soul. He raised a brow while following his senses, and staring at one person in particular amongst the guests, the old man with white hair. Uncle. Ellis called out to his uncle with a soft bow to show respect. Even though he was angry with him, he still didn't want outsiders to know about the internal conflict in the family. Do you know these people? Claude turned his gaze to the people from the Vagel family. No, uncle. This is my first time seeing them, Ellis replied. He turned to stare at the group closer, but none of their faces rang a bell. He wasn't too focused on their clothing, so he missed the dragon insignia some of them had on their shirts. They're from the Vagel family, apparently. They said you have something of theirs. Is this true? Claude introduced the group. Ellis was taken aback when he heard the name, and couldn't help but pause for a bit. The Vagel family. I don't recall ever crossing paths with them. You didn't, but someone you met not too long ago did, Claude said. Oh, who's that? Ellis asked, showing a slight confusion. Of course he knew what this was about, but there was no way he was going to show that he did. First, before the Vagel family could travel this far meant there was something extraordinary among the items that he took from the bandit leader. What was worth mentioning was that he wasn't the only one who took the items. So if he were to say he has any of the items, and they were to check him and what they wanted wasn't with him, it would expose Gray. Given Gray's current position and situation, he couldn't afford to do that. The bandit leader of Cyan Canyon. According to rumors, you were the one who cleared the place. The old man from the Vagel family spoke up. He was starting to get impatient. Oh, it's not a rumor. I killed the leader here not too long ago. Claude intervened, using the opportunity to show off his family's superiority in young talent. Then did you acquire his storage ring? The old man turned to Claude. Since he was the one who killed the bandit leader, then it meant he saw him alive. I couldn't care less about what's in the storage ring of a crappy bandit. Just having such thoughts is like a blemish on my name, Claude replied. Although he was taking every chance he got to annoy the Vagel family, he wasn't lying here. For someone as powerful as he is, things belonging to those weaker than he is can barely catch his eye unless he saw it physically. When he told Ellis to bring the leader, it was only to make sure Ellis returned. That bandit has something important to my family. Where's the corpse? The old man asked while standing from his seat. I've asked the guards to destroy it, but if I may, how did a small-time bandit like that take something important to you people? Claude couldn't help but ask. None of your business. Take us to the place where the guard destroyed the body. The ring should still be intact, the old man said. All right. Claude thought about it for a while before nodding. He was curious about what would make the Vagel family so frantic. The thought of a top-secret treasure of the family being acquired by them made him a little excited. Seeing the current strength of the Vagel family, he secretly summoned the elders of the O'Brien family. If whatever they were searching for was something that could increase the strength of the family, he didn't mind offending the Vagel family. The guard he told to dispose of the bandit leader's body led them to a space at the back of the compound, behind a large garden. He pointed at the spot where the body was destroyed, and when the group looked closely, they could still see the charred ground. It was evident that the guard used the fire element. Claude asked if he saw any storage ring with him, and his answer left everyone shocked. According to him, there was no ring on the corpse of the bandit leader. Are you certain? Claude asked with narrowed eyes. Yes, my lord, when I brought him here, there was nothing of value on him. I checked him personally before burning the corpse, the guard answered hastily. He suddenly felt as if the sky had descended on him as a mountain-like pressure started to crush him. "Do not lie to me. Where is the ring?" the old man with the Vagel family asked, his voice cold and detached. I didn't see any ring, sir." The guard could barely get the words out of his mouth, but everyone could sense his honesty. The second old man in the group waved his hand to dispel the pressure placed on the body of the guard. He turned to look in Ellis's direction. "Since the ring was not on the bandit leader when he was brought here, it only means that it has been removed before he got here. Now, the question is by who?" he asked while looking at Ellis. He wasn't the only one who had his eyes on Ellis. Everyone from the Vagel family, as well as the O'Brien family who was there, was staring at him. Chapter 562. "What? Why are you all staring at me like that?" Ellis asked after being stared at for almost a minute. It was an uncomfortable feeling. "You're the one who brought the bandit leader back. Since the ring isn't on him, where is it?" Claude questioned. "I don't know. I barely managed to survive fighting against so many people. Do you think I would be worried about a damn ring?" Ellis asked, raising his voice slightly towards the end of his question. "It did take you a single day to deal with the bandits. I presume you must have gone through a lot," Claude said. "Oh, how did you defeat the bandits anyway?" the old man with dark hair asked. "I fought." Ellis's reply was simple, but everyone knew it had a lot in it. "I must commend your effort. But you see, what we're searching for, we'll obtain it no matter what. If the storage ring is with you, I'd advise you to give it back now," the old man with dark hair said. "I'm sorry, but I didn't see any storage rings. There were a lot of bandits, and some of them escaped when they realized they couldn't beat me," Ellis explained. "All right, we should get going." The old man with dark hair turned to the others from the Vagel family. The O'Brien family weren't people they could oppress with their strength, so staying here any further wouldn't change anything. Since Ellis said he didn't have it, they had to leave. Leaving didn't mean they would let the matter rest though. The dragon's blood they acquired took them through hell. They were not going to let it go that easily. One of the reasons why the old man let Ellis go was that he had secretly made a hand seal that would identify if Ellis had been in contact with the blood, and the answer was no. The only thing was that Ellis could pass the blood to someone else without being aware of what it was. He may not even touch it. All in all, Ellis was the only person they could think of who had the bandit leader's storage ring. The Vagel family left soon after not being able to get anything from Ellis or Claude. Back at the O'Brien family hall. "Where is it?" Claude placed his hand on Ellis's shoulder. "Where's what?" asked Ellis. "Stop playing dumb. The ring. I know others might think you're speaking the truth, but I know for a fact that you're lying when you said you didn't have it." Claude walked away from Ellis's position, heading in the direction of the middle chair. "Honestly, I don't. As I said, there were more important things to focus on, like staying alive. You sent me to my end, luckily I survived," Ellis said coldly. "I sent you out to train, nothing more. You can take it however you see it, but without enough pressure, you will not be able to grow to the top. I'm just making sure this pressure is constant." Claude rubbed his hands together as he spoke. Ellis stared at him but didn't speak anymore. He turned around and left the room, walking steadily towards his room. Mortar City. In a tavern. The Vagel family was still in the city, not willing to leave so easily. "Find out what you can about the boy. Also, I want people who saw him returning to describe how he was when he came back," the old man with dark hair commanded. The middle-aged men in the group nodded before vanishing. Sigh. "This is really becoming a bother. Why did the O'Brien family send out their young lord to fight against those bandits on his own? Given their numbers and the strength of the leader, the kid shouldn't have been able to survive it." The old man with white hair said his thoughts of the current situation. "Also, if I remember correctly, the kid said some bandits escaped. Find them and question them," the old man with white hair said. "Yes, grandfather," a young man amongst the group said before leaving the room. "All right, now all we have to do is wait for reports," the old man with dark hair said. "O'Brien Mansion. Gray, what's the situation?" Ellis was unable to hold back anymore, so he contacted Gray first. Unfortunately, he didn't get a reply. "Damn it. Come on, Gray, answer me." Ellis's father's room. After Gray closed the door, he placed his back on the door as he stared around. The room was huge, with a large bed on the end of the room. He could sense an eerie aura across the room, an aura that made him feel uncomfortable. Looks like he's bedridden, he muttered to himself before slowly approaching the bed. He could see a figure on the bed, one he assumed was Ellis's father, an obvious assumption. "Who are you? And why are you sneaking about in my room?" A raspy voice asked softly. Gray knew the source of the voice. Hearing how weak it was, he was almost certain that Ellis's father wouldn't be able to live for long if this persisted. "Hello, sir, I'm a friend of your son." He bowed. Even though Ellis's father was still lying on the bed, he still had to show some respect. After all, this was once the powerful family head of the O'Brien family. "Ellis's friend?" Thoma asked, his voice still raspy. "Yes, he told me of your situation, and I came to see if I can help," Gray explained. "Ha, foolish boy, even the elders and the best physicians in the continent can't help me." Thoma laughed out lightly but coughed soon after. Gray knew he was referring to Ellis when he was speaking. "Thank you for willing to assist that foolish son of mine, but I don't think there's anything you can do. Also, how is he?" Thoma continued speaking after his cough subsided. "Honestly, not good. He's the same as you, only still walking," Gray said. "Sigh. I knew it would come to this. This is why I told him to leave the family. If anything happens to me." Thoma sighed. He understood perfectly what Gray meant by his words. Chapter 563. "You should go to him," Thoma said. "Can I try? Who knows? I just might be of help," Gray asked. He didn't want to leave without trying, even though he wasn't 100% certain that he would be able to help. He still needed to try. "You can't help me, boy, just let it go," Thoma said. "Believe in me, sir, just like your son did." "I'm only going to try," Gray persuaded. "I want to. I really do. But the thing is, I was infected by a miasma when searching for Ellis a few years back when he disappeared without a..." Thoma explained his condition to Gray. The miasma that infected him was something they have never encountered before. When someone tried to help him, the person was also infected by it. After the miasma entered his body, it turned into horrifying energy that is slowly corroding his innards. The person who was infected by it was far weaker than he was and lost his life soon after. His strength has been the only thing that has been keeping him alive all this time, but even he knew it was only a matter of time before he too succumbed to it. After hearing this, do you still have any thoughts of trying when you aren't certain whatever you're planning to do will work? Thoma asked after he finished his explanation. Yes, Gray nodded. It was as if he wasn't hearing anything Thoma was saying all this while. Sigh. Look boy, I'm glad that Ellis managed to make a friend like you who is willing to endanger himself for his friend's happiness. But you can't let him lose you as well, Thoma said. Don't worry, sir, even if it doesn't work, it won't infect me, Gray said with a confident smile. I'm sorry, boy, but I can't allow that. Thoma shook his head. This was a risk he wasn't willing to accept. I'm sorry, sir, but I'm not leaving until I try. Gray's eyes shone with determination. He will stay here for as long as he can until he helped out. Thoma and Gray stared at each other, the atmosphere tense. Gray was unwilling to leave until he tried to help. Thoma, on the other hand, unwilling to put his son's friend in danger. While Gray and Thoma were stuck in a stalemate, a minor conflict seems to be on the verge of erupting in Mortar City. The Vagel family are adamant that Ellis had the dragon's blood, and a report from someone who saw them enter the city with the bandit leader on his shoulder said that the ring was never in the leader's possession when they came in. A few bandits, as well as the girls who were partying with the bandits at the time Gray and Ellis attacked, said before the attack, the leader had his storage ring in his possession. Ellis was in the O'Brien mansion, trying to contact Gray, who still hadn't replied to any of his messages. Claude was trying to figure out what the Vagel family was searching for so seriously. A few hours after the Vagel family left the O'Brien mansion, they returned. Old man, why are you here again? Claude came out of the mansion and asked. Beside him were the family's elders. Where's the boy? The old man asked coldly. The group from the Vagel family wasn't like the way they were the last time they came. This time, they seemed ready to declare war against the O'Brien family. What do you want with my nephew? Claude asked. Before the group from the Vagel family could reply, he added, if you're here for the same reason, then you should leave. My nephew already said he didn't have the ring. I'm not speaking of your nephew. He came back with a boy. Where is the boy? The old man from the Vagel family said. A boy. A look of confusion appeared on Claude's face. His eyes suddenly widened after recalling sensing the young man who followed Ellis back to the mansion. He didn't really think much of it since it wasn't relevant. I don't know why you're searching for that boy, but I'm certain he doesn't have the ring. Ellis must have encountered him when returning back to the city after eliminating the bandits. Claude said, looks like you're unaware. Without that boy, your nephew wouldn't have been able to wipe out the bandits. The old man from the Vagel family said. When they found some of the bandits who survived, they spoke of a youth who wore masks. The same thing was said from the people who confirmed not seeing a ring in the hands of the bandit leader. The boy's only at the peak of the origin plane. Even someone at the early stages of the overlord plane will find it difficult in such a battle. Claude argued. It's not that he didn't know of any geniuses, but none of them could help out in such a battle while still being in the origin plane. One has to know that almost all the bandits were overlord plane elementalists. What? The old man, along with every person in the Vagel family, exclaimed in disbelief when they heard Claude's words. They knew too well that he wouldn't lie for something so little. They all exchanged glances, all seeing the shock in their eyes, especially the people who got the news from the bandits. They heard about a powerful individual who almost single-handedly fought against all the bandits in Overlord Plane on his own. How could such a person be in the origin plane? One of them recounted what they heard to Claude, and the people from the O'Brien family, and disbelief appeared on their faces. If what they said was true, then it was impossible for Ellis to defeat the bandits without Gray's help. A peak origin plane elementalist holding his own against over 150 bandits, killing a lot of them. This is a feat almost unrepeatable. The young lord truly found a great friend. Geniuses truly do befriend geniuses. An elder said with emotions. He wasn't against Ellis. Unlike most of the elders here, some of them only supported Claude for their own personal objectives. There are a few who were against what he was doing to Ellis. Chapter 564. Call Ellis over, Claude said with a blank face. No one knew what was running through his head at the moment. Most of the elders here knew of his attempts to remove Ellis from the family, to pave a way for his lineage. Everyone waited for the guard to come back with Ellis. A few minutes later, the guard returned with Ellis in tow. Uncle, you called. Ellis's voice could be heard before he came out of the building. He was surprised when he saw the people from the Vagel family again, not expecting to see them this quickly after they left. Yes, where's your friend? Claude went straight to the point. My friend. Ellis almost freaked out when he heard this question, but he managed to hold himself back. He initially thought Gray had been captured, but if he were his uncle wouldn't ask him about it so calmly. The boy you came back with, where is he? Claude asked, taking a step towards Ellis, standing in front of him. He's gone. Ellis lied without even blinking. There was no way he could say Gray was in his father's room. That would cause him too many problems. You're lying. He hasn't left the mansion since coming. Actually, he hasn't left your room since he came. Claude narrowed his eyes. He turned to look at the guard who came with Ellis before nodding. Uncle, what's the meaning of this? Ellis asked, his eyes showing anger. Your friend has something the Vagel family wants. I can't let someone we aren't related to cause problems for a family. Claude held onto Ellis, stopping him from going after the guard. Ellis clenched his fist while gritting his teeth. Unfortunately, there was no way he could free himself from the hold of his uncle. The Vagel family watched on silently, waiting for the guard to come back with Gray. The elders of the O'Brien family watched on as well. This was a very complex matter. If Gray truly has the item the Vagel family wanted, then they'll have to force him to hand it back, so they don't go to war with the Vagel family. But if Gray doesn't have it, it will make things complicated, since the Vagel family believes strongly that Ellis or Gray, who wiped out the bandits, had the item. The guard returned within a minute, but Gray was not with him, contrary to the expectations of the crowd waiting outside. Where's the boy? Claude asked the guard. There's no one in the room, my lord. The guard bowed as he reported. Huh? Claude raised a brow. You see, I told you he's gone, Ellis said as he freed himself from his uncle's grasp. Claude, I need the boy, the old man from the Vagel family said. HMPH. I'm not your servant, old man. This is the O'Brien family. Claude snorted coldly. He might want to hang Gray over, but since he couldn't be found, There was no way he would cower in the face of the Vagel family. If he wanted to gain the trust and favor of the elders, then he had to show them his strength. Watch your tongue, Claude. When I was famous in the continent, you weren't born. The old man took a step forward, releasing his powerful aura. The shape of a dragon's head appeared above him. An avatar, Ellis thought internally as he stared at the dragon that seemed to have the strength to topple the world with a single roar. Xylers, what are you doing? One of the elders in the O'Brien family stepped forward. What the boy has is important to the Vagel family, and we will not stop until we get it back. Xylers withdrew his avatar before turning around. The faces of everyone in the O'Brien family turned serious. They knew what Xyrus' words meant. Either they provide Grey, or they would have to contend with the Vagel family. Just what does he have? Claude took a step forward, stopping Xylers from leaving. Since it's already gotten to this, I'm not going to hide it. You all know about my family's connection with the dragons. Since our first ancestor, none of us has been able to get a high purity of dragon blood when born, and over time, the purity of the blood continued dwindling. To stop it, the elders decided we should start refining a true dragon's blood. Of course, it was easier said than done. It's not like we could capture dragons since it was forbidden. So we made a pact with a dragon who's a friend of our ancestor. Every 100 years, he'll give us a drop of blood essence to give to the most qualified member of the younger generation. With this, we have been able to produce a genius every 100 years. The only reason I'm willingly telling you this is because other than the Vagel family, no one else can refine a dragon's blood essence. Xylers explained. Does that mean? Claude's eyes widened. Yes, what the boy has is the dragon's blood essence, Xylers said before Claude could finish his statement. Everyone from the O'Brien family took a deep breath when they heard this revelation. Although they've all heard of this, it was merely rumors amongst the big families. No one from the Vagel family has ever confirmed it. The only reason they didn't dismiss it was because they followed the saying, which was there wouldn't be ripples in the water with disturbance. Ellis was currently caught in a dilemma. The Vagel family are hellbent on retrieving the blood essence, which means they wouldn't mind getting into a battle with his family. But he couldn't give up Grey. I'll wait till he finishes with what he's doing. I'll think of what to do then. But I never saw something like that in the ring, he thought, still confused about not sensing the blood essence. For something so powerful, it was strange that they didn't notice it. Chapter 565. The Vagel family left after some time, but the atmosphere in the O'Brien family was a little tense. They might not be afraid of the Vagel family, but that doesn't mean they want to go to war with them as well. The main issue now was this: where is Grey? They've asked Ellis multiple times and even done a complete search on the mansion, but they haven't found him. Of course, they didn't go near Therma's room, since the thought of Grey being there didn't cross their minds one bit. But just to be safe, they did ask the elder who made the array to check on it. And after he verified that it was still normal, they didn't bother anymore. The O'Brien family hole. Ellis, this is important. Even though we do not know if the kid has it, we have to present him to the Vagel family as well. Once they've confirmed that it's not with him, then they will see no reason to fight us. After all, they know they can't beat us. They might be strong, but we aren't weaklings either. One of the elders said coldly. I'm just as stumped as you all. Originally, I thought he left when I didn't find him in my room. This was why I said he was gone when Uncle asked. But now no one saw him leaving the building, which means he's still here. Ellis replied, a little worried about the situation. He knew about Grey's abilities with arrays, but the elder who made this array was someone that is over 2,000 years old, and he had been an array master since he was 30 years old, so it goes to show how long and knowledgeable he is about arrays. If he didn't sense any changes in the array, it meant two things. Either Grey never entered his father's room, or Grey somehow found a way to hide from the array. Of the two possibilities, the first one was more believable than the latter. But he had confidence in his friend, and is certain that he will never leave without even informing him. Thinking about this, a third possibility came to his mind. Was he kidnapped? His expression turned even sourer than that of the elders and Claude. If Grey was kidnapped, it would make things more difficult. At least now he still had some hope of Grey being able to heal his father. Not just that, but also coming out. Given Grey's personality, he didn't feel he would want to put his family in a difficult position. so he would most likely hand over the blood essence if it's in his possession. Xylers said they will return at sunrise tomorrow. We have until then to find the boy. We might not know how he left the mansion, but one thing is certain, we have to find him, no matter what. The elder who stood up to Xylers said. The others all nodded to his words, before leaving the hall, heading in different directions. They all had loyal spies they could count on in times like this. Presently, some are even watching the movements of the Vagel family. While all this was taking place, Claude didn't say a word. His head rested on his chin. He stared at the elders as they tried to find out Gray's position. After a while, he stood up, leaving the hall and entering the hallway. He took a few turns, and he soon appeared in front of a family door. It was the one that led to Thoma's room. I wonder what brother would do in a situation like this, he thought as he walked towards the door. Compared to his brother, he wasn't the best decision maker. This was one of the reasons why their father gave the position over to him. Even when he was slightly stronger than Thoma, it didn't change anything. Thoma has always been cool-headed when dealing with conflicts since he was young, and possesses the aura of a leader. He took a few steps forward, standing in front of the door. Holding the doorknob, he turned it slowly. Click. It made the sound of it being opened, and just as he was about to push the door open, "My lord, the young lord is fighting with your son." A guard rushed over to report. Huh? Claude raised a brow as he turned his head to look at the guard. "Where are they?" he asked. "Behind the garden," the guard replied. "All right." Claude turned around, closing the door before walking away. "I'll handle this myself," he thought as he disappeared from the hallway. At the back of the garden in the O'Brien mansion. Boom, bang. "Bring out that friend of yours. A thief will always befriend a thief," a young man said as he attacked Ellis. Ellis dodged calmly to the side as he used the water element to push his cousin a few meters away from him. "Gilead, I don't want to fight you," Ellis said after casually brushing off his attack. "But I want to. You've made us a laughing stock. Bring trouble with you wherever you go," Gilead said as he attacked with the wind element again. Ellis made a few hand seals, and raindrops started to fall from the sky. "You're drunk, Gil. You can easily disperse the alcohol, but you choose to let it stay. So you can say you're under its influence when you attacked me. Pathetic." The rain began to pour down heavily from the night sky as Ellis started to levitate from the ground. "I will show you what true power is. This time, I won't hold back," Ellis said as he continued to float higher into the sky, staring at Gilead from above. Gilead raised his head to look at Ellis, his expression one of disgust. He spat on the ground before he summoned a small tornado that picked him up. Claude and a few of the elders were watching from the side. Some youths were also watching as well. "Is this who you want to lead the family, a drunk?" an elder asked. His question was met with silence from Claude. He only narrowed his eyes as he watched the two youths in the sky. "I will settle this with one attack," Ellis said, his demeanor different from the one he always displayed. This was the first time the elders were seeing this side of him, and they couldn't deny it. They were impressed. He was just like his father, proud and confident in his abilities. "Hey, do you think you can trade blows with me?" Gilead sneered before roaring out. A large lightning snake covered by a tornado appeared before it charged at Ellis. Ellis looked at the attack before shaking his head before muttering softly, "Everything before my domain shall fall." Rumble. Bang. A large rumbling sound was accompanied by the explosion of the lightning snake. It was as if it self-destructed. It didn't even get close to Ellis before it exploded. The elders and the youths in the garden stared at Ellis in awe. They couldn't believe what just happened. "Has he been able to awaken his domain?" one of the elders asked in shock. "Yes. I never took note of it until now. Even if there are 5 Gileads here, they are still not his match. Looks like the young lord has improved so much. He had been hiding his true strength," another elder said, changing the way he had been addressing Ellis. A domain was something only those above the sage plane could use, and not all of them could awaken it, only a given few could. After the sage plane, the next level was the elemental venerable. After that was elemental sovereign. Elemental sovereigns are those who have been able to create their domains. Without a domain, there is no way an elemental venerable can get to the next level. Only a few geniuses can awaken their domains before they become elemental venerables. Most of them awaken it when they are already elemental venerables. Ellis was one of the few people in history who has awakened his domain. While still in the sage plane, his strength has increased drastically. that it could almost be said that he was unbeatable in the Sage Plane. This is the advantage a domain has. One has to know that Ellis was still in the mid-stages of the Sage Plane. Yet with a domain, he could go against someone at the peak of the Sage Plane. The pressure from his father almost losing his life, Gray's sudden disappearance, and the appearance of the Vagel family pushed him so much that he unknowingly awakened a power he shouldn't have access to now. The greatest disadvantage with awakening a domain quickly was that he couldn't support it fully because of the huge amount of essence it needed to operate. Gil, after today, know your place. Ellis spread out both hands, and he shone with a blue question mark light. Chapter 566. Icy Rain. Ellis muttered while looking at Gilead. The raindrops suddenly paused, before turning to small shards of ice as they rained down on Gilead. Gilead created a rotating wind that he used to protect himself, but his expression changed when he realized that it wasn't stopping the attack. Enough. Claude's voice resounded just as the ice shards were about to pierce Gilead. With a single word, the ice shards shattered, and Ellis's domain was forcefully destroyed. Splat. Ellis spat out a mouthful of blood before falling from the sky. An elder acted quickly, catching him before he hit the ground. Claude, why did you forcefully destroy the domain? Do you plan on damaging his core? The elder asked with an angry expression. He will be fine. I didn't use too much power. Claude approached Gilead. My boy, you've disappointed me, he said as he stood in front of his son, his voice filled with disappointment. With Ellis awakening his domain, the difference between the duo was like day and night. Gilead will be unable to compete against Ellis anymore. Gilead clenched his fist so hard that his nails pierced his flesh, making blood drip from it. Claude shook his head before walking past him, going towards Ellis. The elder who helped Ellis stood in front of him, acting as a shield before the approaching Claude. Do you think I would kill my nephew? Claude asked with a serious expression. At the moment, I do not know what you are capable of. The elder refused to move. Ellis is a genius that might surpass all the geniuses the family has produced over the last 3,000 years. There was no way he would allow anything to happen to him, especially if the person causing the harm was from the family. I've always put the family first in every decision I've been making. Do you think I will allow someone like him to go to waste? Claude placed his hand on the shoulder of the elder. It's okay, Uncle wouldn't harm me, at least not while Father is still alive, and you all are here. Ellis gave the approval for Claude to come close. The elder finally moved to the side, letting Claude walk through. Provide the boy you came with, and I'll forget about your past transgressions. Claude said. My past transgressions? What have I ever done that harmed the family? Ellis couldn't rein in his anger when he heard this. Claude was sounding as if he was taking pity on him. He had never done anything that put the family name in jeopardy. So what was Claude talking about? You don't know, do you? Claude asked. Confusion appeared on Ellis's face. Know what? Claude narrowed his eyes as he whispered into Ellis's ear, the reason for Thoma's illness. My father. Ellis's eyes widened. Thoma told us not to speak of it to you if you ever returned. But you're not a child anymore. He was infected by a strange miasma when searching for you, Claude said. The others couldn't hear what he was saying, but from Ellis' reaction, they could tell it was nothing good. Tears welled up in Ellis's eyes when he understood what happened. Father is ill because of me. His voice went soft as he asked. No, at this rate, your father will die because of you, Claude said. When he was done with his words, he turned around and walked away, his objective complete. Since Ellis has shown such talents, and he couldn't do anything to him physically, he would bring him down emotionally and mentally. The elders watched on as tears continued rolling down from Ellis's eyes, unaware of the exchange between the two. Ellis turned around and walked away, weak and dejected. In a family he came from, he was alone. Ellis, what did he tell you? The elder who was standing between Ellis and Claude ran after him and asked. The truth, Ellis replied before walking. The elder sighed, angered by Claude's decision to tell Ellis about the reason for his father's illness. He didn't need Ellis to tell him what they spoke about. The next morning, the Vagel family came at the break of dawn. Claude, we're back, where is the boy? Xylas questioned as they entered the compound. They didn't even get to the building before he released his powerful aura, drawing the attention of everyone in the O'Brien mansion. Before long, everyone in the O'Brien mansion was standing outside, facing the group from the Vagel family. Xylas, the O'Brien family is not somewhere you can act as you want. We're still searching for the boy. When we find him, we'll hand him over to you. An elder from the O'Brien family said. The boy is nowhere in the city. That means he's either hiding here, or has left the city. We can't begin a search since we do not know anything about him, Xylers said, staring coldly at the people from the O'Brien family, especially Ellis and Claude. Just like you, we do not know the boy. He's acquainted with Ellis. Claude turned to look at Ellis. I don't know where he's from. We only met by chance when I went missing. Ellis said, his expression blank. He was telling the truth though, he really didn't know anything about Gray. If Gray didn't help him when he was still playing weak in the magical beasts forest, they wouldn't have become friends. Then why did you take him with you to the Cyan Canyon? Claude asked. He came along. It's not like I can tell him to go back. After all, I needed all the help I could get. Ellis had the same blank look on his face. It was evident that he was still suffering from the words Claude told him the previous night. The revelation of finding out he was going to be the reason for his father's death was too much for him to handle. He hadn't even tried to contact Gray since then, and he had completely forgotten about the tracking device he had with him. The sooner you provide the boy, the better for you all. Xylers directed his pressure at Ellis. Just when the pressure was getting too much for Ellis, the sound of soft footsteps could be heard from inside the mansion. Xylers, is this how you treat members of the younger generation? That voice, don't tell me he's. Chapter 567. Claude, you've been disappointing, the voice from inside said. Father. Ellis turned around, staring at the door that led to the building. Everyone in the family, as well as the Vagel family, turned to look in that direction as well. The footsteps intensified as two figures appeared. A middle-aged man who had the same features as Ellis, with a well-trimmed beard, walked out, accompanied by Gray, Void elegantly standing on his shoulder, like always. Thoma, how? Claude asked, shocked. But he soon took note of the person walking beside him. Isn't that the kid we have been searching for? Father, you're better now. Ellis walked towards his father, a little unsure of how to react. Ha, yes. Thoma laughed as he took Ellis into his hands. Gray smiled softly, his face a little pale from staying awake throughout the night, working on how to make Thoma better. While the duo hugged tightly, Xylers approached Gray. Boy, where is the bandit leader's storage ring? He asked, his imposing figure pressurizing Gray. Gray waved his hand and the pressure coming his way disappeared. Huh? What ring? Don't play dumb, boy. We know you have the ring with you, Xylers said. He was a little taken aback by how easily Gray was able to disperse his intimidating aura, but he didn't think too much about it. The blood essence came first. I have no idea what you're talking about. Ellis, what's happening? Gray turned to Ellis. Oh, that. Well, you see. Ellis gave him a brief summary of what happened the previous day. Wow, a dragon's blood essence. Now that's impressive. How did you lose it? Gray exclaimed, before asking a question that infuriated the people from the Vagel family, especially the youngsters. The bandit leader's storage ring. Where is it? Xylers asked, starting to get annoyed by Gray's behavior. I have no idea what you're talking about. I might not be from a big family like you, but I don't loot people. That's disgraceful, Gray said proudly, putting on a dignified expression. Xylers was about to approach Gray when the old man with dark hair walked up to him and whispered in his ears, Xylers, I can't sense the aura of the blood essence on him. He doesn't have it. What? Impossible. If he doesn't have it, then where is it? Xylers' eyes widened, his eyeballs almost popping out. I don't know, but I know for a fact that it's not on him, the old man said, his eyes showing frustration. They thought the blood essence was with either Ellis or Gray, hence they didn't worry too much about it. However, things are different now. Since it's not with either of them, it meant that the band leader must have either kept it somewhere or passed it on to someone else. Damn it, how annoying, Xylers said, almost exploding with anger. Luckily, the second old man was with him, so he helped contain the energy that shot out of his body. Such a strange cat. The old man with dark hair raised his brow when he saw Void on Gray's shoulder. He could sense that he was different, but no matter how hard he tried, all he could sense was a normal cat. Since you're here, why don't you all come in for a drink? It's been a while we encountered each other, Thoma said, standing face to face with Xylers. I'm sorry, But we don't have such luxury time. There are more important things we want to handle, Xylas replied. Since they've been able to confirm that the blood essence is not with Grey, there was no use in staying here any longer. The sooner they start searching for it, the better. What was more annoying was that the dragon would not give them a second blood essence, because it took too much energy from it. After giving them this one, it would have to recover for a long time before it can give them another one. Alright, but you're welcome to come whenever you want as a guest, of course, not an enemy, Thoma said with a smile. The people from the Vagel family nodded, the old man with dark hair apologizing for their behavior before they left. Since their assumption was wrong, it was normal for them to apologize. After all, the O'Brien family is not a small family. How did you enter his room? Claude turned to Grey after the Vagel family left. Since Grey was with Thoma, it meant that Thoma's recovery has something to do with him. He helped me. Grey pointed at Ellis. There was no use in hiding it anyway. So you know where he has been all this while? Claude turned to Ellis, infuriated. Yeah, but I wasn't sure he was there since I couldn't reach him. Ellis nodded. And you allowed the Vagel family to demean us when you could easily provide him and end all this nonsense. Claude yelled as he approached Ellis. He said he could help with father. I couldn't allow you to disturb him, Ellis replied. Thoma stood in front of Ellis, blocking Claude from approaching. You all have been really disappointing. Thoma turned around, looking at all the elders. They dropped their heads, not wanting to look Thoma in the eyes. You in particular, sending my son out on missions that might kill him, he said before turning to Ellis. And you, why didn't you speak of this? Father, I didn't want to make you worry, Ellis said. How come I wasn't able to detect you in the family head's room? An elder approached Grey, a curious expression on his face. Ellis whispered in Grey's ears. He's the array master who made the array in father's room. You don't need to worry about him. He's not interested in all this struggle. Simple, I modified it. I added a small loophole to it, Grey replied after getting confirmation from Ellis. Impressive, come, tell me what you did. The elder held on to Grey and disappeared with him. None of the people here made a sound, not even Thoma or Claude. This elder was one of the oldest and strongest elders in the family. Chapter 568. With Grey taken away by the elder, only the important members of the O'Brien family were left. Thoma looked around before walking inside, Ellis behind him, accompanied by everyone else. Claude's face was portraying an array of mixed emotions, not sure of what to do now that Thoma was actually healthy again. He originally thought the control of the family would rest on him with Thoma out of the way. But now, everything has changed. What's worse is that he had mistreated Thoma's last surviving child, almost sending him to his doom a couple of times. Using the excuse of him being the cause of Thoma's illness as an excuse for the other elders, and also to make him grow stronger. Of course, not all the elders agreed to this, but he had managed to win the majority of the elders to his side, so he was successful with his plans. O'Brien family hall. Thoma was sitting on the seat in the middle, the elders and Claude sitting by his side, discussing the events that occurred in the family since his absence. Claude, did you really have to go this far? Thoma asked. They were reneging from their promise. If we don't show them who's boss, they will soon start defying us. Claude replied. Using force will never get you anywhere. Didn't father teach you that? Thoma shook his head at his brother's behavior. What did you expect me to do? Watch them as they continue expanding and not give us the full payment as usual. Claude stood up from his seat. We've been allies with them for a while now, even though they're weaker. It doesn't mean you should step on them if they fail to make a payment. Thoma explained. There are times where action is needed for a relationship to hold. Talking can't fix everything, Claude said. This was what he hated the most about his brother. He was always looking for a peaceful way out of everything. That only shows how weak he actually is. I know of this too. But you're always too rash with your decisions. Fine, forget about it. I'll head there to see them personally. Thoma sighed while looking at his brother. They continued speaking about other matters before he brought them all back to the matter of Ellis. His expression was different, compared to when he was speaking about the other matters. All right, so why did you all try to kill my son? He asked, his eyes dark. No one tried to kill him. We only sent him out on missions to help train him. Claude defended himself. I wonder why you didn't do the same for Gil. Since that's the case, I'll be sending Gil out for a little experimental training as well. Thoma narrowed his eyes. Since Claude was trying to hide behind this excuse, then he too would do the same. Claude's reaction was just as expected. Anger was written all over his face. What do you mean send Gil out for an experimental training? Ellis isn't the only member of the family, Gil is as well. It will be a shame if because of all the training you put Ellis through, he would be far stronger than Gil. I want Gil to be strong as well, Thoma answered nonchalantly. I'll not allow it. Claude hit the armrest of the chair he was sitting on. You have no say in this, Thoma said calmly. Brother, do not provoke me, Claude threatened. Sigh. You're still not seeing the pattern here. Thoma shook his head. Because of you, there's a rift in the family, brothers fighting brothers. Do you think the family will retain its prestigious name if it takes this road? How many families have fallen due to conflict? Too many to count, he added while standing up. Together we stand, divided and we will fall. Why do you think the Vagel family dared to impose on us? Because they know of the divide in the family. Stop being a moron and think properly. You say you have the family's best interest at heart. Then why are you destroying it? Thoma walked towards Claude as he asked multiple questions. His words resounded clearly in the entire hall, and most of the elders who were on Claude's side bent their heads in shame. It was true, a divided family could be easily taken apart. It has happened in history so many times, and even till now, it's still happening. Families fighting against each other, slowly dividing the power that once made them great. You're my brother, and I will never do anything that will harm you. But this is your last warning. If you ever do anything that will jeopardize the unity of this family again, then I will personally end you, Thoma said, his aura oppressive. He turned to look at everyone in the hall. This goes to all of you as well. I will not accept this again. The Thoma currently speaking wasn't the same as the one who was speaking about the issue of some other family. It was the family head of the O'Brien family, one of the largest families in the southern continent. He might look weak, but they all knew how scary he was when he was angry. Claude gritted his teeth angrily, but he refrained from speaking back. With heads bowed, he apologized, something that Thoma nor the elders expected. It's good that you know what's more important. Don't think too much about it. We're still one family, together to the end. Thoma patted his brother on the shoulder before walking out of the hall. Ellis quickly followed behind him, impressed by his father's show of strength. Thoma's room. As soon as Thoma walked into the room, he started coughing seriously, with his hands across his mouth. Ellis suddenly opened the door. Father, you were. He paused mid-sentence, looking at his father's pale face, and the blood dripping from the side of his mouth. His eyes widened as he rushed towards him. Father, what's wrong? Thoma continued coughing for a few more seconds before he managed to reply with a faint smile. I pushed myself too hard. Don't worry about it. Chapter 569. Are you sure? Ellis asked, worried for his father. Yes, Thoma nodded. You see, your friend hasn't completed the healing process. He was drained, and I could sense the situation outside, so we had to take a pause. After hearing Thoma's explanation, Ellis finally calmed down. He couldn't help but feel grateful to Gray for his help. An illness no one has been able to resolve. He managed to heal it, even if it was by a little. It showed how extraordinary he was. How did he do it? Ellis asked, excited by the prospect of his father recovering sooner. If the method was something other people could use, then he didn't mind trying it out as well. I don't know, and it's best if you don't ask. All I know is that it's quite draining. If we came out the moment he stopped using it, then you would have thought your friend was a walking corpse. He was not only pale, but he dried up too. Luckily, he was able to recover at an amazing speed. Seriously, the speed of his recovery is shocking. Thoma shook his head in amazement. Gray's abilities were shocking, and the fact that he was still at the peak of the origin plane was more terrifying. How amazing would he be once he breaks through to the Sage plane? Have you seen him fight? He's a monster. Ellis told him of how Gray helped him wipe out the bandits in Cyan Canyon. After hearing Gray's battle capabilities, Thoma was once again left astounded. Gray could miraculously heal him. He had a quick recovery, his battle prowess was on another level, and he was even an array genius. If he isn't regarded as a genius, who was? The other geniuses he knew didn't hold a candle in front of Gray. It's nice you got to befriend someone like him. Which family is he from? Thoma asked. He's from a remote place, the place I was accidentally teleported to. Ellis explained, telling him of how he met Gray. Such a place where the people at the peak are only at the early stages of the sage plane, and a genius like this was born there. Impossible, Thoma exclaimed. I never expected it myself, but it's the truth. I've also encountered a few people, but none of them are on his level. It's strange that someone like him grew up in such a remote place. Ellis shook his head. Since he's a friend, then we don't have any worries. A genius like him is bound to rise to the top of the world eventually. I wouldn't be too surprised if he becomes the strongest person in the world at some point, Thoma said. The strongest? Isn't that a bit too high? Ellis was shocked by his father's words. He accepted the fact that Gray was a genius above most geniuses, but for his father to say he would become the strongest elementalist in the world was an exaggeration. Fine, you don't believe me. Mark my words, someday, your friend will become the most powerful person in the world. If it does happen, you'll cry in front of me, Thoma said. Ellis almost spat out a mouthful of blood when he heard his father's request. What sort of an odd request was that? Come cry in front of him if what he said happens. Impossible. Then what if it doesn't happen? Ellis asked. We'll have a drink together with you massaging my back, Thoma replied with a smile. I don't see how I benefit from either of your statements. Ellis rolled his eyes. I'm the father. I make the rules of the game. Thoma grinned. Ellis laughed out before hugging his father. I've missed you so much. Me too, boy. Thoma patted Ellis's hair as they hugged. Later that day, Gray was finally released by the elder who took him away, and the moment he returned, he fell on Ellis's bed and fell asleep. He was exhausted from helping Thoma recover, and now he was taken away by a strange old man who wanted to learn some things from him. Although, he couldn't say he didn't enjoy the company of the elder, since he learned a lot about arrays from him. Even though he was able to make a loophole in the array the elder made, it didn't mean they were on the same level. His creativity and quick thinking was some of the reasons why he managed to do what he did. Gray woke up the next day, almost close to his original state. He still needed to rest, so he didn't even try to do anything, and went to rest soon after eating. He still had to continue healing Ellis's father, so he needed to ensure that he was in full health before he tried to help him again. Gray stayed in the O'Brien family, and he was treated nicely, especially by the elder who was an array master. When he was not with Ellis's father, he would be with the elder discussing arrays. His knowledge increased as time went on, and he actually got an idea to cover up the mark on his back. The mark has been with him since his first encounter with a necromancer, and he still hasn't been able to hide it. No matter what he did, he was unable to. Luckily, other than the guy he met at the ruin, he hadn't encountered another necromancer. Considering his usual bad luck, he felt happy about how things had been going. First of all, he was still alive even in a place like this where youngsters were almost as powerful as his teacher. There were even people like Ellis who were stronger. He recalled his teacher was at the peak of the Overlord plane the last time he heard about him. It's a shame he hadn't seen him since leaving the trial land. Thinking of his teacher, he couldn't help but wonder how he was faring. His friends also came to mind as well. Once he was done here, he would head back to the Azure continent to bring his friends here. Chapter 570. 10 days later. That should be all of it, Uncle, Gray said with a slightly pale face as he stared at Ellis's father, who was already back to normal. He never expected it would take this long, but after 10 long arduous days, he had finally removed the last of the strange energy in Ellis's father's body. Well, consumed should be the right word. What he found strange was that his body actually attracted the energy from Thoma's body into his. Then the orb in his body will slowly start working, before integrating it into his body. Even he didn't know how it was possible, but it happened. One thing that was worth mentioning was that his strength had increased significantly, and he was certain of being able to break into the Overlord plane in no time. Not just that, but he knew he wouldn't just enter the Overlord plane, but he might even jump straight to the mid-stages of it. This is because of how long he had been conserving essence energy. He was like a dam waiting to burst open, so it could release all the water stored in it. Now that he was done with this, it was time to head back to the Azure continent, but before that, he had to rest up. The next morning, Thoma, Ellis, a few of the family's elder, was standing in front of the teleportation array in Mortar City. This was the array Ellis used when he was accidentally teleported to the Azure continent. Gray initially wanted to ask for help, but Void told him he knew the coordinates to the Azure continent, so there was no need in asking anyone for help. Amongst the duo, Void was the one who wanted to leave the most. The reason for this was that he couldn't hold himself back anymore from refining the dragon blood essence with him. He also found this place very boring, although the food was quite pleasing. But Gray was a better cook, so he enjoyed their company. Just as Gray was about to leave, Ellis recalled something. Could it be that he's from a large family? I never got to ask him his last name, he thought to himself. He recalled facing an old man the time he was about to leave the Azure continent, and the old man referred to Gray as young lord. This obviously meant that Gray was from a powerful family, only he was unaware of this. If he could find out Gray's last name, he just might be able to find out which family Gray was from. With this thought in his head, he approached Gray. I've been meaning to ask, what's your last name? He asked when he got close to Gray. Why are you asking? Gray raised a brow curiously. Since you helped my father recover, I recall that you are searching for your parents. Maybe I could help with the search. Ellis explained. Oh, it's Dawson, Gray said offhandedly. Dawson? Ellis asked, his eyes showing shock. If it was the Dawson family he was thinking about, then it would explain why Gray was such an amazing genius. But it was also a problem given the hatred the Dawson family had for them. Yeah, Gray nodded. He didn't miss the shock in Ellis' eyes, but before he could ask any more questions, the array lit up. He didn't ask any more questions as he waved goodbye to the people from the O'Brien family. The elder who made arrays had a sad expression on his face. It was like his longtime friend was leaving him alone in the world. Ellis, is everything all right? Thoma asked when he saw his expression. Yes, we should head back. Ellis smiled before walking away. The others also left the place as well, heading back to the O'Brien mansion. Azure continent. A few months after Gray left for the Aurora continent, the war that had been looming around broke out. Gray's friends have been tagged as wanted criminals, and they were all on the run. Alice's family had it rough since she was the only one who had a big family that could be held by the Emperor. Thousands had died in the battle, and it was still ongoing. The first originally started between the Azure and the Killen Empire, but the other two empires had joined in as well when they saw the severity of the situation. Of course, this was all because of the influence of the two empires. The Blue Wind Empire joined forces with the Azure Empire, while the Stellar Empire joined forces with the Killen Empire. This battle had cost each empire thousands of elementalists, and without a final result, it would be a shame for the dead bunch. None of Gray's friends has been captured yet, which was good news, but rumors have been circulating about one of them being seen close to the borders of the Azure Empire. It was none other than Reynolds. Of the group, he could be regarded as the strongest thanks to his elemental warrior. Of course, this was with the exception of Gray. He had been surrounded multiple times, but he had managed to fight his way out of it, escaping and killing countless warriors. All four of them were wanted by all four empires, and other than Gray, there had been a few times when Alice, Reynolds, or Klaus had been surrounded. Klaus had even been captured once, but he managed to escape before he was transported to the capital. One thing is for sure though, their lives were in danger, and the longer the war lasted, the smaller their chances of escaping unscathed. Gray and Void appeared in the middle of the forest, unaware of what had been happening since their departure. Finally, we're back. Gray took in a deep breath as they appeared. He wasn't familiar with where they appeared. Come on, first things first, let's refine this thing, Void urged. Is it safe here? Gray asked. If they landed in the magical beasts forest, then taking this out will only bring more problems to them. Yes, now let's go, Void said before going in search of a cave. Gray looked around with a smile before going after him. Chapter 571. This should be safe, Void said standing in front of a cave. Gray looked around before nodding his head. This place was relatively quiet, and all the beasts he could sense around them were still in the arcane plane. It's been a while since he encountered anything in the arcane plane, and it was kind of weird for him. Looks like this isn't the magical beasts forest, he thought before setting up an array around the cave. He made two arrays actually, one to protect them, and the other to not only conceal their aura, but the aura of the dragon's blood essence as well. A high-level beast's blood essence was a great tonic for low-level beasts, so even if they caught a little whiff of it, they would go crazy trying to consume it. Apostrophe sigh, if only I could conceal this mark, Gray thought to himself while touching his shoulder. Even with his new knowledge of arrays, he had still been unable to hide it. He even asked for help from the Elder and the O'Brien family, but they were unable to bring up something tangible. All their efforts failed in the end, and he couldn't help but give up. Instead of wasting his time on it, he would take the opportunity to learn other things from the old man. The old man was very nice since he willingly taught him a lot about arrays that he had learned over the years. Gray and Void entered the cave, and Void took out the rock. He tapped on it lightly, and the rock started to crack. Just from the small crack that appeared on it, an alarming energy leaked out, shocking Gray to his core. He couldn't believe something like this could be concealed so well. The thought of it amazed him. If the person who concealed this helped him out, then he should be able to conceal the mark. The rock soon disappeared, and a single drop of blood could be seen floating mid-air. Normally, it shouldn't be possible for a human to be able to use this. But you're different, so you shouldn't have any problems. At most you'll die, Void said. Gray almost fell on the ground when he heard the last part of Void's statement. What the hell did he mean by at most he'll die? Does he look like someone who would want to risk his life unnecessarily? You should be fine, just try it. Void shared the blood essence into two before taking half to one end of the cave and refining it. Gray stared at the blood essence for a few seconds, unsure of what to do. Forget it, I'll take the risk. With the help of the orb, I should be fine, he said before grabbing the other half of the blood essence. As soon as he held onto it, a massive wave of pressure descended on him, but it soon subsided, thanks to the orb which started rotating at full speed. This further gave Gray the confidence that he should be fine with absorbing it. With everything set, he sat in a cross-leg position and slowly started to refine the blood essence. He wasn't transferring the energy to his core. Instead, he was using it to improve the strength of his physical body. Dragons are known for their strong body and immense physical strength. If this could help him attain something like that, he would be happy. The blood essence slowly entered his body, before running through his blood vessels. He experienced excruciating pain as the blood entered his blood vessel. The force was so much that it actually destroyed his blood vessel. He healed almost instantly, but it destroyed it once again. Not just that, but his skin was also being broken as well from the force of the blood. The speed at which it was moving increased as time went on. The pain continued, but he gritted his teeth and endured it. Time slowly passed and day soon turned night. Even with so many hours going by, he still hadn't completely absorbed the blood essence. Void's blood essence was already more than halfway used up. The next day, boom, a powerful aura spread out with Gray in the middle. Cracks appeared on the wall of the cave, and the arrays he made outside shattered. "Oh, you're awake," Void said when sensed the aura Gray was giving off. How long has it been?" Gray asked while looking around. There was a difference in his aura. He was like a dragon that was concealing itself, waiting to show off its magnificence. "A day, I think," Void replied. "How did it go?" he asked. He already knew the answer, but he also wanted to hear it from Gray's mouth. "Very well. I'm already almost on the brink of breaking through to the Overlord plane. All I need is to crack the last bead," Gray replied. Unlike other people who needed to crack their beads once, he had to slowly crack his beads, then integrate the power into his body. This was why he had been unable to break through to the Overlord plane even after trying so hard previously. After finding out the technique, he started breaking his beads. His strength increases every time he breaks a bead. From his estimation, even after breaking through to the Overlord plane, his strength wouldn't increase by too much. "You're like a beast right now. You can easily hide in the midst of beasts and not be noticed. Well, not if they look at you," Void commented. Gray retracted the aura he was releasing. "It's not bad. It should come in handy later in the future. Do you plan on infiltrating a beast's abode?" "'Cause if you do, I'm up for it too," Void asked excitedly. "No one's infiltrating anywhere. Come on, let's see how things have been in this place." Gray stepped out of the cave, ready to search for his friends. Locating them wasn't a problem for him though, thanks to the tracking device they all had with them. Chapter 572. Gray and Void left the woods, heading towards the town close to them. He decided to bring out his communication device to see how many times his friends had tried to contact him, and the moment he sent in his sensors, he was flooded with so many messages that he had to remove it immediately. He could barely hear a word. Is it broken? He thought to himself as he stared at it. Well, it's been over 7 months since he left, and his friends must have tried to contact him countless times. He recalled the situation before he left wasn't too friendly, since the Emperor was trying to capture them. He still didn't know the motive of the Emperor, but he didn't really care. With the world he had been introduced to in the Aurora continent, staying here was just limiting himself. If his friends weren't here, he was almost 100% certain he wouldn't return unless he didn't find his parents in the Aurora continent. They soon got to the town closest to the woods, and Gray was stumped when he found people dressed in warriors' uniforms mounting the place. He was a little shocked by it, but then again, he didn't think too much of it. He had forgotten about the war which was said to be looming across the continent. This should be a good place to get information. I want to know where we are, Gray muttered as he walked towards the town. Where he was going to appear wasn't fixed. Void only knew the coordinates back to the Azure continent. So when they returned, they were transported back randomly. The only thing Void made sure of was that they didn't appear anywhere near the magical beasts forest. The only time he's been there, he sensed some powerful auras that even with his proud personality, he didn't want to offend. Well, for now. Gray and Void got to the gate that led into the town within a few minutes. His mask was still on his face, and since he couldn't sense the aura of anyone over the early stages of the Overlord plane, he didn't bother to hide Void. Unlike when he left for the Aurora continent, presently, he could easily kill someone in the early stages of the Overlord plane, so he didn't need to fear. Void was already almost a peak rank 5 magical beast. That was the same as being at the peak of the Overlord plane. There are few people who could threaten him here. On getting to the town's gate, Gray was surprised by what he saw. 4 wanted posters were placed on the wall of the gate. 3 were images of his friends, while the last one was of him, with a cat on his shoulder. He exchanged looks with Void before turning around. Even though he was stronger than the people here, he didn't want to attract their attention. Unfortunately for him, someone already caught sight of him. "You, stop there," one of the warriors yelled. They have been staring at the posters for so long that the images of Gray and his friends had already been etched in their heads. "Call the leader, tell him we've captured Gray," the warrior said to the one beside him as he rushed towards Gray. "Can I help you?" Gray asked, trying to act normal. "Yes, I have some questions for you," the warrior said as he and the others surrounded Gray. "Go ahead, I'm all ears." Gray folded his hands when he saw what was happening. "You're Gray, right?" the warrior asked. "Nope." Gray shook his head. There was no way he was going to answer the question honestly. Besides, there's a chance that they might let him go if he said no. "Stop lying, we can identify you with that cat on your shoulder." The warrior pointed at Void. "Whoever you're searching for can't possibly be the only person with a black cat," Gray refuted. While he was speaking with the warriors, the leader of the group arrived. He was the only person in the Overlord plane, and he was in the second stage. "Gray, submit yourself freely or I will have to force you," the leader said. He looked to be in his mid-30s, an arrogant look on his face. For someone like him, anyone below the Overlord plane was nothing more than an insect. He could already sense Gray's stage, since Gray wasn't doing anything to hide it, so he knew he was stronger than he was. Well, so he thought. "Heh, do you think I'll be scared by the likes of you?" Gray scoffed, not bothered by what the leader was saying. "Take him down," the leader ordered, his lips curved upwards to form a grin. "Wait, first of all, where is this?" Gray spread out his hands to stop the warriors from coming any closer. He still didn't know where he was, and since he just returned, he wasn't too inclined to entertain these people. "This is the Azure Empire. Haha. Who would have thought that your emperor would chase you here? I heard that one of your friends is also on his way here as well. Good, we'll round up all 4 of you and extract your cores." The leader of the warriors laughed out as he said, This is my first time visiting the Azure Empire. No wonder I couldn't recognize the insignia on their uniforms." Gray muttered lightly. "As if you'll recognize the insignia of the warriors from the Killen Empire." Void rolled his eyes when he heard Gray's words. Gray chuckled before staring at the leader. "Since this is my first time here, and I don't have any enmity with the Azure Empire. I'll let you all go." The leader, as well as the over 100 warriors, were at a loss of words when they heard Gray's words. There were at least 15 people at the peak of the origin plane here, and none of them had the guts to say something like this. Such boldness. Ha ha ha. I haven't seen anyone that made me laugh this much in a long time. The leader of the warriors burst out laughing. Gray shook his head when he saw this. Before taking a step, he was around 50 meters away from the leader of the warriors, but with a single step, he arrived in front of him. He raised his right hand and flicked the forehead of the leader. Swoosh, bang. Chapter 573. Swoosh, bang. The leader of the warriors was sent flying, crashing into the gate to the town, destroying it in the process. Only after he crashed into 3 buildings did he stop moving. Everything happened so fast that some of the warriors were still in the midst of laughing. From Gray taking a step to the leader crashing into multiple buildings didn't take more than 3 seconds. Given their speed, they should be able to keep up with a peak origin plane elementalist, but even their leader who was in the overlord plane could not. How come he's so weak? Gray asked with a thoughtful expression. His words stunned the warriors close to him. What did he mean weak? The leader was a bona fide overlord plane elementalist, and he sent him flying with a flick of his finger, and he was calling him weak. He was the one who was freakishly strong. Gray had completely forgotten that the strength of those overlord plane elementalists in the Aurora continent was well above that of those here. Although not all overlord plane elementalists here were weak, most of them couldn't fight against someone in the same stage from the Aurora continent. The warriors all stared at Gray, not daring to take a single step. Well, looks like it's time to go. Oh, where did you say my friend was again? Gray turned to the warrior nearest to him. The warrior wanted to speak out, but he was still too frightened from what just happened. He pointed in the direction of the border. Gray nodded before taking out the tracking device, and just like they said, a light was very close to him. I wonder which of them it is, he thought to himself before disappearing. Unfortunately for him, he still couldn't fly, which was annoying given how powerful he already is. Other than when he's in the fusion state, or when he's using the technique meteor descent, he couldn't keep himself afloat without the help of the wind element. If he uses that, it would slow him down, so he just opted for running away. Of course, the warriors didn't see him running because he used the space element to teleport a good distance away. He just created a powerful image of himself in the heads of these people. How embarrassing would it be that they would have to see him running on foot? After he left, the warriors finally breathed out a sigh of relief. Some of them even held their breaths all through the time he was still there after he sent their leader flying. They were afraid that their breaths might provoke him. They hurriedly rushed towards where their leader crashed, and their eyes nearly popped out of their heads. The forehead of their leader caved inside, and there was not a single sign of life in him. They all gulped down their saliva as they stared at each other in fear. The second in command quickly came out. Quick, send words back to the capital. Gray has appeared, and his strength is unprecedented. Everyone had been searching for Gray for so long that some people had even concluded that he was dead. Now, he didn't only appear sound and healthy, but he was powerful beyond words. The second in command didn't even know how to rate Gray's strength, since all he needed to kill their leader was nothing more than a flick. The warriors nodded before one of them ran towards a horse. After mounting it, he charged towards the capital. Gray and his friends were said to have refined the Great Earth Essence liquid, and someone in the capital had a way of extracting the cores of these geniuses. According to what was said, Gray and his friends were geniuses. With the addition of the Great Earth Essence liquid, they would be far above their peers. Gray's performance not too long ago was already a testament to how far he had improved, thanks to the Great Earth Essence liquid. At the border of the Azure Empire, Reynolds was currently hiding in a cave, tending to his injuries. He had been on the run for a while now, and a 5th stage Overlord Plane Elementalist had been after him for a while now. He was just in the 1st stage of the Overlord Plane, while his Elemental Warrior had reached the 5th stage as well. It is stronger than the Elementalist that was chasing after him, but the Elementalist wasn't alone. With the help of 2 other Overlord Plane Elementalists, it was difficult for him to escape. He was already very lucky since he had managed to run away from their encirclement a few times, but he was injured during the last escape. Because of this, he hadn't been able to advance. If he had a few weeks, then he would be able to break through to the second stage of the Overlord plane, and his elemental warrior getting to the sixth stage of the Overlord plane. Without his elemental warrior, he could take on someone in the third stage of the Overlord plane, while still being in the first stage. He was regarded as a genius who could fight across stages after all. From the rumors he heard, Alice and Klaus were already in the second and third stages of the Overlord plane. Klaus was the one who had the highest stage, and he could even fight against a fifth stage Overlord plane elementalist. The time he was caught, it was said that he fought against a sixth stage Overlord plane elementalist for hours, before he was finally defeated. But just as he was being transported to the capital, a powerful elementalist appeared, wiping out all the people who caught him. Reynolds was certain that this powerful elementalist was none other than the principal, but he wasn't too sure, since the person was said to have wiped out the entire group, with nothing more than a simple glance. An Overlord plane elementalist shouldn't be able to do that. While Reynolds was still healing, he sensed three auras approaching quickly, and his expression turned sour. Chapter 574. Damn it. Can't they just let me recover? Reynolds complained while gulping down a bottle of tonic. Crap. Why don't they make these things sweet? He complained before tossing the vial away, irritated by his current situation. He prepared himself while wiping the blood that was on the side of his mouth from the previous battle. He stayed in the cave for as long as he could, so he could recover some more before stepping out. Staying inside the cave wouldn't be good for him. When he stepped outside, he saw three men standing mid-air. HMPH, just come with us calmly, the man in the middle said coldly. His hands were behind him. Why don't you fight me one-on-one if you know you're powerful? Reynolds demanded coldly, annoyed by the people standing in front of him. Hey, I'm not a child, boy. Surrender peacefully, and I'll plead with the Emperor to make sure it doesn't hurt when you're being killed. The man smirked. He knew the strength of Reynolds' elemental warrior. If he dared to fight against it on his own, he would lose without a shadow of a doubt. Not just that, but he might be killed as well. This is the Azure Empire's territory. If you dare make any moves, we'll kill you. A yell was heard from behind Reynolds. Reynolds heaved a sigh when he heard this. The reason he made sure his escape route wasn't hidden was so that he could use the people from the Azure Empire to stop the group chasing after him. His relief soon turned to disbelief when he sensed the stages of the people who came forward. Only one of them was in the Overlord plane, and he was even in the early stages. Are you for real? You couldn't come with someone more powerful. Reynolds yelled at the group as they came closer. Before they could reply, the group from the Killen Empire attacked, not giving them any chances. Reynolds was forced to help them defend against the group from the Azure Empire. Even though these people came here for the same purpose as those who chased him, he couldn't let them die. They were currently his only hope of survival. Joining them to fight against this group was better than fighting against the group alone. Boom, bang, bam. The battle raged on, with the people in the Origin plane being quickly killed off from the ranks of the elementalists from the Azure Empire. Now, only the man in the Overlord plane was left alive. If not for Reynolds' intervention, he would have been killed on numerous occasions. Reynolds was at a loss for words. He didn't know if these people came to help him, or if they came to cause him more harm. Technically, they did come to cause him harm, but in the current situation, they were more like a drag to him. In order to keep the man alive, he had been injured again, further weakening him. His elemental warrior was keeping the man in the fifth stage at bay, while he and the man from the Azure Empire were fighting against the two men in the early stages of the Overlord plane. He was not at his best, so he couldn't handle one of them on his own like he previously did, and the man from the Azure Empire was making things a little bit more difficult. However, he still helped on some occasions, else Reynolds would have found an opportunity to kill him. Why are you even here? Reynolds asked angrily when he saw how things were going. To take you to our Emperor, the man replied, even though he was being pushed back. Well, you're doing a really shitty job, I must say, Reynolds commented, frustrated by the man's lack of strength. How could someone in the Overlord plane be so weak? Haha, is this the reason you came all this way, to get help from these fools? The man fighting against the elemental warrior soon realized why Reynolds had been running in this direction. They had been on Reynolds' trail for over a month now, and it was only until recently that he started to move in this direction. And unlike how he previously hid, this time, he came out in the open, so people could know his whereabouts. It was only after these people came out did he finally understand his reasoning. Seems like you're not so dumb after all, the man commented. Thank you. I can almost say the same for you, Reynolds replied. The man was stunned by Reynolds' reply, but he quickly kept his temper in check. He had traded blows with Reynolds for a while now, and he knew just how annoying he could be. According to what he heard, compared to Klaus, Reynolds was a little bit better. Klaus had been said to make one of his pursuers so furious that the man was prepared to forego the Emperor's order and kill him there and then. Unfortunately for him, it was the cause of his downfall as Klaus capitalized on it. Boom, bam. The man focused on the elemental warrior once again, not daring to slack. Reynolds was fighting hard, protecting himself as well as the man from the Azure Empire, but his injuries were worsening as time went on. If things continued like this, then he would truly be captured. Swoosh! A wind blade slashed the man from the Azure Empire, sending him flying. The man crashed into the ground heavily, while coughing out a mouthful of blood. On his stomach was a large gash with blood rushing out of it. Reynolds turned to look at the man, but he quickly covered his body with lightning as he tried to dash into the woods. Things had gone from bad to worse. He couldn't stay there any longer. Hey, you think you can escape from us? One of the duo fighting against him smirked as they ran towards him. Reynolds suddenly made a quick turn mid-air, attacking the person closest to him with a powerful lightning spear. Chapter 575. Buzz. Whoosh. The lightning spear buzzed as it shot through the air, slicing through the wind. The man who just started to give chase after Reynolds was a wind elementalist. But even he wasn't as fast as the lightning spear that was coming at him, and the distance between him and Reynolds was close, so the chances of him escaping were small. He hastily moved to the side, hoping to make sure the spear didn't hit his vitals. Reynolds could care less about where the spear hit. As soon as sent the spear towards the man, he braced himself because the other man just sent out an attack on him. He couldn't dodge since he was just turning around, so he was pretty much in the same position as the man he attacked. Boom, bang. Both attacks struck their targets at the same time, sending them flying. The spear stabbed the man on his chest, pinning him to the ground as he was electrocuted by the lightning. Reynolds, on the other hand, was slammed into the ground by the brutal attack of the earth hammer his opponent used to strike him down. A pit was created on the ground where he landed, and just like the man his spear hit, he wasn't moving as well, and blood was running down from his head, ear, as well as his nose and mouth. He could barely hear what was happening around clearly, and other than a ringing sound, he wasn't really hearing anything else. The earth elementalist who was standing mid-air rushed towards his partner, who started to twitch slightly from the shock of the lightning. Since Reynolds wasn't moving, he thought he was dead, or at least close to it, since he was already hurt from their previous battles. The wind elementalist slowly opened his eyes, and mustering all the strength he could, he used the wind element to push his partner to the side. Buzz. Bang. A lightning bolt struck from above, hitting the place where the earth elementalist was previously standing. The wind elementalist was struck by the attack, once again suffering the brunt of a lightning attack. The lightning spear which was on him was still there, and acting like a receptor, it absorbed all the lightning that hit the ground, making sure the wind elementalist took 100% of the attack. The gruesome scream, followed by the charred body of the wind elementalist, as well as the smell of burnt scream, sent chills down the spine of the earth elementalist. He turned to look in the direction Reynolds was lying in, and he saw him standing, although he could see that he was barely standing properly. You scoundrel, I'll make sure you feel as much pain as he is feeling right now. First of all, I'll break all your bones. The earth elementalist grinned evilly as he advanced towards Reynolds. Come on, hit me with your best shot, Reynolds said as he staggered while trying to stand properly. A hammer made from the earth element appeared above Reynolds, but he was too weak to even stand properly, much less defend against this attack. The hammer swung in his direction, but just as it was about to hit him, it disintegrated. Both Reynolds and the earth elementalist exclaimed simultaneously. Hey bud, you're in such bad shape, I almost didn't recognize you. A figure appeared beside Reynolds like a ghost. Who else was it if not Gray? What do you mean? I look great, Reynolds refuted, with blood slowly dripping down the side of his mouth. Well, that's not your regular appearance, but since you like it, I can make sure you keep it, we good. Gray joked as he rested on his friend's body. Reynolds almost fell when Gray rested on his body, but he forced himself to stand properly. How I want to look is none of your concern. Besides, where have you been all this while? Reynolds asked, his expression one of anger. Here and there, moving around. Gray replied with a nonchalant look. Nice, prepare for a group beating when we reunite. Reynolds nodded as he announced. Haha, I don't think that will be possible. Gray laughed as he poked Reynolds on his shoulder. Reynolds grimaced in pain with his eyes closed. You're Gray. Haha. Looks like the Emperor will reward us richly. You fool. Why are you staring at them? Take down that brat as well. The man fighting against the elemental warrior managed to see Gray and couldn't contain his happiness. The man who was still standing looked at Gray, a little worried, given how Gray not only easily destroyed his attack, but also appeared out of thin air. Void appeared on Reynolds' other shoulder, almost making him faint from the pain. Do this too plan on killing me? He complained inside. Gray looked at his friend before flashing a smile. You're hurt. Why don't I take it from here? After saying that, he took a step forward, but he turned around to hand a vial to Reynolds. It was one of the vials containing a healing tonic they collected from the blooming viper. Don't drink it all, a drop will be enough. He reminded Reynolds. You don't need to make a move, everything is under control. Reynolds took the vial. Haha, with your current condition, I'm impressed that you're still standing after I rested on your shoulder. Gray laughed out. Just as he was about to make a move, Reynolds noticed something that stunned him. Gray was still in the origin plane. How could he still be in the origin plane? This question repeated itself in his head over 100 times in the space of a second. Gray, they're in the overlord plane, you can't. Reynolds paused mid-sentence because something unbelievable happened in front of him. No matter how highly he thought of Gray, never in 1,000 years did he think he would be able to easily beat someone in the second stage of the overlord plane, while still being at the peak stage of the origin plane, with nothing more than a finger. But it was happening right before him. The Earth Elementalist was sent flying with a single flick from Gray. Monster, 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 he exclaimed repeatedly in his head. Chapter 576. Show off. Void muttered when he saw how Gray chose to deal with the Earth Elementalist. He could easily kill him with a powerful attack or even a flashy one, but he picked the simplest method that would leave anyone who didn't know him in awe. I should do this more often, Gray said to himself as he turned to look at Reynolds. Reynolds continued staring at him, at a loss for words. What did he just see? An origin plane elementalist beating an overlord plane elementalist with a finger. Gray didn't even use any elemental powers. He just outright bullied the man with his immense monstrous physical strength. What the hell? Just when Reynolds felt he was a little better than Gray, this happened. He couldn't help but shake his head. However, he was beyond happy for his friend. With Gray's current strength, they could run amok in the Azure Empire. If those people in the Sage Plane didn't show up, then they were good. You can call back your elemental warrior now. I can deal with that guy as well, Gray suggested. Reynolds snorted, but still quickly called back his elemental warrior. He was already almost on the verge of running out of elemental essence. He wasn't going to foolishly keep it active when he could try to recover. You're not in the origin plane, the man who was fighting against the elemental warrior said, pointing at Gray. Oh, I'm very much still in the origin plane, but compared to the overlord plane elementalists I've fought, you're not in the top 500, that's plus those in the early stages, Gray said. His words sent the hysterical with anger. What did Gray mean by he was not in the top 500 of overlord plane elementalists he had fought against? One has to know that he was a high and respected individual in the Killen Empire. He was only forced into chasing after a youth by the Emperor, and the greed of obtaining a good reward that might help him advance further. He could already open an academy in the Empire if he wanted, and it wouldn't be regarded as a small academy given his strength. However, he was being undermined by a small brat in the origin plane. Even if said brat was powerful, he was afraid of him. Besides, it was unheard of that an origin plane elementalist could defeat an overlord plane that is already in the mid-stages. Gray shook his head when he saw the man's behavior. Hey Ray, how long do you think he will last? Reynolds thought for a few seconds before replying with a doubtful expression, 5 minutes. If it was a few months ago, yeah, he might even be able to escape with his life. But now, Gray grinned as he turned to look at his opponent. He doesn't stand a chance. If it was before he fought against Lucan, then this man might have had a chance of escaping. But now, he was certain that he could kill him, very quickly for that matter. He was already far more powerful than he was at the time he fought against Lucan. The man was once again infuriated by Gray's words, and he attacked without holding back. A stream of fire came crashing down on Gray and Reynolds. Gray's expression was still its usual nonchalant one as he threw a fireball that exploded in front of them, blocking the attack of the man easily. The man was mid-air, so striking him was a little difficult for Gray. Unlike the Aurora continent where only a selected few Overlord Plane Elementalists could fly, here Overlord Plane Elementalists had the freedom of flight. Sigh. Such a headache. Gray muttered as he used the wind element to push himself into the air, rushing towards the man as he attacked aggressively. Boom. Bang. They exchanged blows, with the man being forced back from the impact of the attack. His eyes widened as he stared at Gray, who was using the wind element to keep himself afloat. Impossible. It must be a mistake. He refused to believe that Gray was more powerful than he was. How could an Origin Plane Elementalist be more powerful than he is? It was unacceptable. Even in his grave he will never believe it. Bam. Boom. Bang. They continued exchanging blows, and the more blows they traded, the more he was being forced back. Gray was systematically forcing him down. Since he couldn't stay mid-air for long, he suddenly disappeared, appearing in front of the man. He covered his right hand with the fire element before sending out a powerful punch. Although the man was caught by surprise, he still acted accordingly, setting a defensive fire screen in front of him. But to his surprise, it broke apart as soon as Gray's hand made contact with it. Bam! Crash! He came crashing down, slamming into the ground hard. Blood dripped from the side of his mouth as he hurried to his feet. His hands were shaking as he tried to use them to block Gray's attack after his fire screen was broken. What sort of monster is this? He questioned in fear. The appearance of Gray had shaken him to the core. How could an Origin Plane Elementalist be this powerful? No, how could someone so young be this powerful? Multiple questions were running through his head, but he was certain of one thing. He was no match for the youth standing in front of him. He had to escape. Gray threw a fire snake his way, and the man smiled. He suddenly recalled one special ability an Overlord Plane Elementalist has that Origin Plane Elementalists will never have, being able to forcibly take control of a weaker Elementalist's elemental attack. He raised both hands and tried to take control of Gray's attack. That was only a few meters away from Gray, but he was in for a greater surprise because the moment he tried to take control of the fire snake, something smacked away his connection with it. It was a simple smack, but the backlash made him cough up a mouthful of blood. He was once again forced to defend against Gray's attack. Chapter 577. Bang. Boom. The man was once again sent flying, crashing into 3 trees, breaking through them in the process, before finally stopping after hitting a boulder. Gray took a step and appeared in front of the weakened man. The man stared at Gray in dread. It was as if he was looking at his death. Don't take it personal. We were just on different sides. You'd do the same if you were in my shoes, Gray said as a ball of darkness appeared above his hand that was raised above him. As he brought his hand down, the ball of darkness engulfed the man. Ah! The man screamed in horror as the darkness element started to eat away his flesh. Swoosh! Bang! A powerful force suddenly rotated around the man before the darkness element that was covering him was forcefully pushed aside. Gray, who had already turned around, was taken aback before turning to look at the position where the man was standing. Gone. Not on my watch, he sneered before vanishing. 3 kilometers away from where the fight was previously ongoing, a dark figure could be seen flying through the air with unprecedented speed. It was the man who was fighting against Gray. He used a special technique that greatly boosted his strength and speed, but he didn't dare to stay and fight. Instead, he opted to escape. To him, this was the best course of action. First of all, he didn't know the true extent of Gray's strength, and from what he had experienced, he didn't want to. While he was flying, a fire-covered boulder suddenly appeared in front of him, crashing in his direction. He evaded it easily, but his expression changed when he saw more rain down from the sky. It was then that he heard the voice that he dreaded so much. "You're quite impressive," Gray said while standing mid-air. Being complimented by a youth he could easily give birth to someone his age infuriated and embarrassed him. "What do you want?" he asked. Presently, he was even willing to beg as long as Gray let him go alive. Your life. Gray's answer was short and concise. Damn you. If you think you can kill me, then you have something else coming, the man exclaimed angrily before burning in anger. His strength suddenly increased tremendously, and Gray's expression turned serious for the first time. The man's current state was different from how he previously was. He was burning his life force to increase his strength. With an increase in his strength, the man quickly destroyed Gray's meteor descent, breaking apart all the rocks as he charged towards Gray. Gray readied himself as he attacked once again with the fire element. Boom, bang. They traded blows, and it was a tie. Unlike how Gray had been having the upper hand, now they were standing on equal footing. The man was exhilarated when he noticed this, and he quickly increased the intensity of his attacks, attacking more fiercely and widely. Gray was pushed back for the first time, but he was still as calm as usual, not making any careless moves. The man continued attacking fiercely, but unfortunately for him, even with his advantage, he still hasn't been able to even touch a hair on Gray's body. His expression suddenly changed when Gray disappeared and he attacked his right, but his eyes widened even further when he didn't find anyone there. The reason he attacked his right was that after Gray disappeared, he sensed some energy here. However, he was wrong. Gray was standing in front of him. Bam! Gray's fist connected to his chest, sending him crashing towards the ground as his internal injuries were aggravated once again by the person who caused them. Bang! He slammed into the ground, with the shockwave from when he slammed into the ground spreading across a 500 meters mark around them, destroying most of the trees. This goes to show how powerful Gray's punch was. Gray appeared in front of the man, and without even waiting, he attacked with a huge fireball that caused a massive explosion. When the explosion died down, there was no sign of the man. Gray was certain that the man was there when he attacked, so there was almost no chance of him escaping from the attack. With a small nod, he headed back to where Reynolds and Void were resting. Boom! Reynolds and Void felt a powerful wind brush against them from the direction Gray and the man were fighting, and they could even see the large explosion Gray's attack caused. Wow, I can't believe he has already grown so powerful. I need to step up. Reynolds commented when he saw the explosion. No worries, if you went to the place he had been, you would have grown stronger than your current state. Void consoled him. Huh, where did he go? Reynolds couldn't help but ask. He'll tell you when he comes back. Void replied. Gray soon appeared before them. That took longer than expected. Is he dead? Reynolds asked. Most likely, Gray replied. Reynolds was sitting in a cross-leg position, trying to recover from the battle. Okay, we should find a good spot for you to recover, Gray said before walking into the forest. Reynolds stood up from his sitting position and followed behind him. A few hours after they left, 6 men appeared mid-air, staring at the effect of Gray's battle with the man. Who do you think did this? One of the men asked. It must have been someone from the Killen Empire. To think one of their strongest individuals came out. Another one deduced. A powerful fire elementalist. We need to increase our vigilance. The first man said. The 6 men went to the first place the battle started, and seeing the corpses there, they felt it was most likely done by powerful elementalists. I heard one of those youths was coming in this direction. Do you think he has been caught? Someone asked. With the appearance of a powerful figure like this, that's most likely the case. One of the men said. Chapter 578. Azure Empire. In a cave in the forest, Gray could be seen making a meal while Reynolds had his eyes closed, trying to recover with the help of the healing tonic Gray gave to him. He forgot Gray's instructions and drank it all, to the dismay of Gray. Over the months, he had used a lot, and like all consumables, it would naturally run out. If not for Ellis telling him that a small amount will be enough, he would have almost finished it by now, given how much he had been hurt. The smell of the meat he was cooking wafted through the cave, drawing the attention of Reynolds, who couldn't help but take a peek. He had been resting for a while now, so he was pretty much almost healed up, thanks to the healing tonic. I've missed your cooking so much, Reynolds commented as he walked towards Gray. Oh, I got something for you. Gray recalled he had a gift for his friends before taking out a ring. When they were looting the bandits, he made sure to take at least 10 storage rings. He would give them to his friends, his teacher, and his parents when he finds them. Now that he was with Reynolds, he wanted to give him his own. "Wow, you made one for me," Reynolds exclaimed. "Well, not exactly. I took one from someone for you." Gray corrected his statement. "Oh, well, I've always wanted one. Thanks to whoever gave you this," Reynolds said while taking the ring happily. "You should probably wash that before putting it on," Void commented from the side. "Huh? Why?" Reynolds asked, confused. "It was taken from a dead guy," Void said bluntly. "Oh, not bad. Is there anything inside? I mean the loot inside?" Reynolds asked. "Forget what I said, just put it on," Void said before trying to steal a piece of meat. Gray caught him, smacking his paw away before using the water element to wash the ring. "There, you can put it on now." Reynolds sighed at the thought of not being able to get the loot inside the ring, but still wore the ring anyway. He had always wanted one since he knew about it, so getting one was better than not having any. Gray taught him how to use the ring, and within a couple of tries, he was already good with it. The first thing he did was to contact Klaus with the communication device to show off, of course. Unfortunately, Klaus was unable to reply immediately. "So, what's the plan for now?" Reynolds asked after not being able to reach Klaus. "We'll find the others. I heard you guys have been having it tough since I left." Gray passed a piece of meat to Reynolds. Void rushed over to grab a piece of meat that was at least 2 times his size, before running away with it on his hind legs. Gray couldn't help but chuckle when he saw this. Even though food wasn't too useful to them given their current strength, they still enjoyed eating. Void in particular loved it. There had been occasions where he would give Gray a shiny object, so Gray could cook for them to eat. "Yeah, it's been quite rough. Luckily, we have this so we've been in contact with each other. Unlike you who ghosted us for months," Reynolds said after chewing down a big portion of meat. "If I recall correctly, I told you guys I'd be leaving for 6 months. Gray defended. "Well, it doesn't mean we weren't worried, especially after the order to apprehend us became known by everyone. We were literally hiding," Reynolds said as he bit onto the meat angrily. "We thought you were captured when we tried to contact you." Reynolds spoke with meat in his mouth, and bits flew out. Gray quickly created what seemed like a force field that stopped the bits of meat from getting close to him. Once they were around 3 inches, they would stop as if they hit something before falling to the ground. I'm sorry for my prolonged absence, but I assure you, it was for our good." Gray finally agreed to apologize for leaving his friends. "I'm not angry. I was just worried. Seeing you now, I'm happy you're okay and better," Reynolds said quietly. Gray rarely got to see this emotional side of Reynolds, so he knew he was truly worried about him. "I can see you've broken through to the Overlord plane," he said. "Of course. What do you take me for?" Reynolds said proudly. For someone to break through to the Overlord plane before reaching 20 was something that rarely happened in the Azure continent. The number of geniuses who have done this in the history of the continent could be counted by hand, but in this generation, almost that same amount has been recorded. Gray's friends took up half of the number, with 3 others being recorded. "A clown?" Gray answered Reynolds' question with a question. "Haha, not funny," Reynolds said sarcastically. He suddenly thought of something before looking at Gray, quote, "Oh bud." Gray raised his head to look at Reynolds. "Do you remember that guy that came from the same city as you? What's his name again? Joe." Reynolds paused, trying to recall the name. "Jonas?" Gray asked. "Yeah, that one. He was the first person amongst those who left the trial land to break through to the Overlord plane," Reynolds replied. "Oh, it's not unexpected." Gray shrugged, not surprised by the news. The others still didn't know that he was the one who inherited the expert's legacy in the trial land. "Why are you so calm about it?" Reynolds asked, surprised by Gray's reaction. Gray went on to tell him about how he saw him receiving the expert's legacy back at the trial land. Reynolds was shocked when he found out that Gray actually encountered the legacy, but left it to someone he wasn't even friends with. "You're a weird one," Reynolds replied. "To be honest, if he were the one in that position, he would definitely take the power, especially from someone in the Starlight Academy, given the conflict between both academies at that time." Chapter 579. Gray laughed at Reynolds' words, not offended by it. "Who's closer to us?" he asked after they finished speaking about the matter. According to what I know, Klaus is on the other side of the Killen Empire, so getting to him would take a bit of time. Alice should be closer. Reynolds replied after thinking for a while. All right, we'll head over to the light closer to us then. It should be hers if your deduction is correct. Gray brought out the tracking device, and just as Reynolds said, one light was close to them, while the other was a long distance away from their light. Reynolds stared at the device. This was the first time he was seeing it. Unlike the one they had, Gray's own was different, and it seemed to have more functions too. They stayed in the cave for the rest of the night speaking about their experiences since they separated. Well, it was mostly Reynolds who did most of the talking. Gray just listened. He still hasn't told him about the Aurora continent. When Reynolds asked about his whereabouts, he said he would tell him when the others were around. Reynolds was curious, but he decided to wait till they reunited with the others. Given the strength Gray showed, it meant they shouldn't have too many problems if they were accidentally found. Before leaving, Gray did a rough estimation, and he realized that teleporting to Frost City will take them closer to the light closest to them, which was most likely Alice's. Gray actually hoped it was since the principal was with Klaus, so Klaus had someone powerful to protect him. Alice left her family, so she was pretty much all alone right now. If she was caught, that was it for her. Within a few minutes, Gray finished preparing a teleportation array. He had become quite efficient when making it, and now it even took less essence stones to travel. They took quite a bit of stones from the bandits, and he didn't get to use anyone in the teleportation array when he was leaving Mortar City, thanks to the influence of the O'Brien family. Reynolds happily stepped into the teleportation array. This was the first time he would be using it since the trial land, and he was pretty excited about it. It's all done, let's go, Gray said as he placed the last essence stone in the array. Frost City. Since the warrant for Alice was publicly announced, the Rice family had been going through a tough time. They were under the constant supervision of the Emperor, and every inch of the mansion had been checked, even the family's treasury. According to the Emperor's order, if the Rice family were hiding Alice, then they would be regarded as an enemy of the Empire, and be attacked ruthlessly. Luckily for the Rice family, thanks to Gray, their greatest rival the Smith family, were not in a good position, so they couldn't capitalize on it. In the forest beside Frost City, a silhouette of a young lady could be seen staring at the city from the trees. She was repeatedly punching the tree, and it would shake vigorously after each blow. It was none other than Alice. She heard her family was being oppressed by the Emperor's people since they came, and she rushed here. All she wanted to do right now was to rip apart all of them. Her sister was captured since she was not there, and according to what she heard, she was being forced to marry one of the princes. Her father couldn't object to it, since it might actually be a way for Sasha to escape their current fate. At least if she was married to a prince, she wouldn't be under so much scrutiny like all of them. Even though they were a big family, there was nothing they could do. After all, they were alone. One family couldn't go against the entire empire. It was just undoable. The marriage would be taking place today, and she was very certain her sister didn't approve of it. I'll kill him, she muttered repeatedly as she punched the tree fiercely. Just as she was about to lose her control and jump into the city, a familiar voice came from behind. I don't think the tree did anything to deserve such beating. She paused when she heard it. It was a voice she had gotten used to for some years now. Even after not hearing it for over 6 months, she still knew it. You scoundrel, where did you go? She turned around, her face angrier than how it previously was. Gray hurriedly hid behind Reynolds when he saw Alice charging towards him. Get out of the way, I need to pummel him, she hollered at Reynolds. Reynolds tried to move, he really did. Unfortunately, Gray held onto him tightly that it was impossible for him to take a step to the side. Alice, wait, I can explain. Gray peeked from the side as he said, do you know how worried we were about you? You left for months, we couldn't even contact you, Alice said as she tried to get a hold of Gray. Reynolds was unfortunately the one who got the short end of the stick, being stuck in between them. After a few tries and multiple apologies from Gray, Alice finally calmed down. Gray heaved a sigh of relief, but his expression changed when he heard Alice's next statement. Don't think you're off the hook, I'm just waiting for the best time. Alice snorted coldly. I'm sorry. Gray apologized again. HMPH, I'll deal with you later. And you, why did you show others your whereabouts? Alice turned to Reynolds. Reynolds quickly explained his situation to Alice before she snapped. When she heard how he was saved by Gray at the last minute, she couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief. "And you, why are you here?" Gray asked, still hiding behind Reynolds. When Alice heard his question, her face turned sour once again as she explained what was happening. Chapter 580. Sasha's getting married. "Wow, that's nice," Gray exclaimed. Alice stared at him with vicious eyes before he tucked his head in. "I mean, such impudence. We will not allow it." Gray corrected himself. Getting in there would be a problem, since there are definitely multiple Overlord Plane elementalists there. Reynolds commented, "I know, that's why I'm still here." Alice lowered her head with fists clenched. "Don't worry, we'll definitely stop this marriage." Gray comforted her. "Oh, by chance do you know if any high officials will be coming?" he asked. "A few, and some teachers from all the academies. Even though the 5th prince's status isn't that high, he's still a prince nonetheless," Alice replied. Difficult, but not impossible. The only issue is how your family's going to get through the disruption of the marriage. From what you said, they're already facing a lot because of you. If we were to stop this marriage and take Sasha away, how will they cope?" Gray voiced his concerns. With his space element, he had no problems with taking Sasha away from the marriage, but the issue now was how the Emperor was going to treat the Rice family. They were already in a rough position because of Alice's whereabouts. If this was added, it would make things more difficult. "Honestly, I don't know. My father will never agree to run with the family, nor will the elders. But if we take Sasha away, they will have no other option," Alice speculated. "So, will there be a big battle or not?" Reynolds chimed in. If there was going to be a big battle, then he would definitely like to get involved in it. Beating up a few of the instructors from the Starlight Academy would be fun. Unfortunately, no. For the sake of the Rice family, we can't afford to cause a scene. If we are taking her out, it will be so fast that none of them notices. Gray replied, sadly. He too would like to teach a few of the instructors from the Starlight Academy a lesson, especially after what happened the last time he was at the capital. A shame. I really wanted to beat some of them up. Reynolds shook his head dejectedly. Me too. Gray added. Me three. Void added. What's the best course of action now? No matter how I see it, it ends in a bad way for your family. Gray turned to Alice. What if the prince goes missing? Reynolds suggested. It will end the same way for my family as well. The Emperor could easily accuse us of kidnapping the prince, since most of us didn't want the marriage to happen in the first place. Alice replied. A big ruckus then. Your father will have to think of what to do. Either he takes his family into hiding, or he gets captured by the Emperor. I'm not really too bothered with what happens to him. Gray concluded. He didn't really have too good of an impression of Alice's father, so he didn't care about what happens to him, or the rest of the family. Yes, we can finally cause some damage. Void yelled happily. Alice sighed when she heard their conclusions, even though she knew it wasn't a nice choice. They didn't have much of a choice, and time wasn't on their side. The longer they waited, the closer Sasha was to getting married to the 5th prince. Hey, so I have an unpopular opinion. Reynolds suddenly raised his hand. Oh, what's it? Alice and Gray turned to look at him. What if Reynolds paused while taking a few steps back? After getting to a position he deemed was safe enough, he continued. Sasha isn't really against this marriage. Oh, you do have a point there. Gray nodded after hearing Reynolds' words. Although the Emperor is a bad person, well, according to their point of view, it didn't mean everyone related to him was bad. There's probably a chance that Sasha fell in love with the 5th prince, so the feelings between the duo might just be mutual. Alice stared at the duo, a little tongue-tied as she tried to speak up. She wanted to rebuke Reynolds' words, but she couldn't since she knew there might be a possibility of this actually being possible. Gray, is there a way you can get me to her without being noticed? She turned to Gray. Void can deal with that, Gray said. Void nodded before disappearing, appearing on Alice's shoulder. Should I go first, or are we going together? Alice was about to speak when she paused. Wait, he can talk. Gray never told her of Void's ability to speak after he woke up, only telling her that he was fine and he was going on a long journey. She didn't even take note of the few times Void spoke because of her anxious state. Yeah, after he regained consciousness, he started talking. Amazing, right? Reynolds said. Klaus was the first amongst the trio to speak with Void, and he forgot to tell them when they spoke. "You're one hell of a cat." "Great. I think you should check out the situation first, then come back to get me," Alice suggested. Void nodded before disappearing. "Wait," Alice called out. Unfortunately, Void was gone. "Does he know my place?" she asked Gray. "Yeah, he's been there a couple of times." Gray nodded. Alice heaved a sigh before turning to Gray. She finally took the time to look at him from top to bottom. "You've not changed much. And you got slightly taller," Gray commented. "Huh, how come you're still at the peak of the origin plane?" Alice asked, surprised by Gray's cultivation stage. Given his freakish nature, she expected him to at least be in the third stage of the overlord plane, just like Klaus. Long story. Gray shook his head. For a while now, he hadn't been hiding his cultivation stage from others, so they could easily sense it. Of course, it wasn't his original strength, so he wasn't too bothered about it. Chapter 581. The trio stayed in the woods, and Alice spoke of her experiences so far. Gray didn't speak much, just nodding to her words as he continued communicating with Void on the other side. A few minutes later, Void came back. "All clear, we can go now," he said to Alice. "How is she?" Alice asked. "Well, I can't really say," Void replied. He did see her, but her expression was blank, so he didn't know what she was thinking at the moment, and it wasn't like he could read minds. Alice nodded to Gray and Reynolds before leaving with Void. After the duo left, Gray and Reynolds were left alone. "I'll be communicating with Void. He'll give up an update if we need to crash the party or not," Gray said to Reynolds. Reynolds nodded, hoping deep down that they crashed the party. That would be more exciting, and since Klaus was not here with them, he would have something to brag about in front of him. Klaus loved doing things like this, so if he hears of it, he will be heartbroken since he didn't take part in it. Frost City, the Rice family compound. A fissure suddenly appeared behind a bush, and Alice walked out with Void on her shoulder. She looked around with multiple emotions in her eyes. Her surroundings soon changed as Void took her into the building. After a few more teleportations, they appeared inside a room. Sasha could be seen sitting alone in the chair, facing the mirror on the table. There was makeup on her face, and it was impossible to hide her beauty. Unfortunately, there was no smile on her face. She just stared at her reflection blankly. Her eyes, which were half closed, suddenly opened wide when she saw a familiar face in the mirror. She thought she was hallucinating, before hurriedly turning around to look behind her, and the face she saw was exactly the one she saw on the mirror. "Alice," she called out softly, her voice a little rough, while placing her hand on her cheek. "It's me, sis." Alice rested her face on her palm. "Why are you here? Quick, leave before they see you." Sasha quickly recalled her sister's situation before grabbing Alice's hands. "It's okay, sis. They can't catch me," Alice replied quietly. "No, you should leave now," Sasha said. She didn't believe Alice's words. There are multiple Overlord Plane elementalists outside, and even though Alice was also in the Overlord Plane, there was no way she could contend against them on her own. "It's okay, sis. They can't capture me. I sneaked in here without being caught, so I can also leave as well," Alice explained. "Oh," Sasha exclaimed softly in realization. "Sis, so you approve of this marriage?" Alice asked. "Do I have a choice? If I refuse, father will be under even more pressure." Sasha lowered her head. "Since you don't agree to it, then it's all right." "That's all I wanted to hear." Alice smiled. "What are you planning to do?" Sasha asked. "Don't worry, sis. You won't be getting married to that stupid prince." Alice smiled. "Alice, don't do anything rash," Sasha warned. "I'm not, my friends are," Alice said with a light smile. "Father will not be able to fight against the Emperor," Sasha pleaded. "He will have to go into hiding with the family. All this will end soon, so he should just choose to go into hiding for the meantime. I'll speak to him now. Don't worry about the marriage, okay? It will not hold," Alice said. Sasha shook her head. She knew how stubborn she was. She suddenly recalled how Alice and her friends were being hunted down by the Emperor. If they showed up, they would definitely be apprehended. "Take care, sis. I'll go over to explain to father. If he doesn't pick a decision soon, it's his problem. I cannot stand by and watch my only sister get married to a moron. Alice smiled. Alice, stop, don't do this. Sasha pleaded. Void, let's go. Alice tapped Void. Sasha was about to grab Alice, but she grabbed thin air. Alice and Void vanished, gone from the room. Outside Frost City, Gray and Reynolds were still speaking when Gray heard the news from Void. Looks like we're causing a huge ruckus. Nice, Gray said. Haha, yes, Reynolds exclaimed in happiness. Now, all they needed to do was wait until the time of the wedding, before they showed up and sabotage it. Reynolds's plan was to slap the instructor from the Starlight Academy closest to him. Of course, he wouldn't just carelessly slap anyone. He would pick an opponent he knew he could defeat without the help of his elemental warrior. Will they be coming out? Reynolds asked. No need, we'll meet them up in the city. Come, let's go, I have an old acquaintance here. Gray smiled as he held onto Reynolds and disappeared. Frost City, Len's Manor. Old man Gerald has been having the time of his life since Gray disappeared, especially since he hadn't heard about Gray being seen. It meant he was doing a good job with hiding. Even though it wasn't much of a concern to him, he still didn't want his little friend to die. He was sitting in his office leisurely drinking tea when a figure suddenly appeared. He stood up and tried to attack, but he was greeted with a familiar voice and face. Hello, it's been a while, Gray said as he appeared. Old man Gerald, who was already on his feet, stared at the figure in front of him in shock. The fifth prince was about to get married, and most of the people coming here were in the Overlord plane. What the hell was Gray doing here? Why are you here? He asked. To stop the wedding, Gray said nonchalantly. Old man Gerald's leg gave way and he fell on his seat, dejected. What the hell did Gray just say? Chapter 582. You're still at the peak of the origin plane. There's no way I'm letting you go, Old man said when he sensed Gray's cultivation stage. Understandable, but it's not going to hinder me much. I don't think even you can stop me if I want to leave. Did you sense me coming in? Gray said while taking a seat. Old man Gerald paused, not sure of what to say. The anxiety Gray caused him actually made him forget to ask how Gray miraculously appeared in his office. And given his strength, he should have at least sensed Gray when he was coming. A freakish teacher begets an even freakier student, he concluded internally. Will you be going to the ceremony? Gray asked. Yeah. Old man Gerald nodded. Great. I assure you, it'll be fun. Gray chuckled as he stood up. Can you not go? I don't think I can help you if you're surrounded. Old man Gerald couldn't help but beg. Haha, it's alright, so long as a Sage Plane Elementalist doesn't appear, I'm good. Gray laughed. Unlike the Aurora continent where he had to be worried about meeting Sage Plane Elementalists, since they were pretty much everywhere, he didn't have such fears here. What? Old man Gerald cleaned his ears properly. He felt like he wasn't hearing clearly. First Gray said he wanted to stop the wedding between the fifth prince and Sasha Rice. Now he said he wasn't scared of anyone below the Sage Plane. What was arrogance? This was. In old man Gerald's over 800 years of living, he had not seen anyone more arrogant. Gray was still in the origin plane for crying out loud. Old man Gerald sat on his chair, trying to figure out how it was possible for an origin plane elementalist to be so confident in the presence of multiple peak overlord plane elementalists. Alright, I'll be leaving now. I just wanted to check on you, Gray said. He turned around to leave before halting his step. Oh, did you find out anything about my parents? Unfortunately, no. We've been searching since you asked me to, but there has been no news of them. I'm sorry to say that they might be dead or trapped somewhere. Old man Gerald replied sadly. Thank you for your help. Gray nodded before disappearing. Hearing this news further increased his belief that they were not in the Azure continent. Looks like they are from the Aurora continent. And to think they hid it from him, he thought to himself. With Gray gone, old man Gerald was left alone in his office. Even Chris hasn't been seen or heard from in well over a year now. A strange bunch, they just go around disappearing as if it's nothing, he muttered while trying to take a deep breath. Gray's appearance has somewhat spoilt his easy lifestyle. To be honest, he was happy Gray was alive and seemed powerful, given how he could come and go as he pleases. One has to know that there were at least 3 peak Overlord plane elementalists in this mansion. Adding him makes it 4, and none of them noticed how Gray came and went. Although Gray was standing before him, he still almost didn't notice him. He stood up and prepared to head to the mayor's manor for the wedding ceremony. Frost City. The city was bustling with activity, and the cause for this was that the 5th prince of the Killen Empire was getting married to the daughter of the Empire's somewhat outcast family, Sasha Rice. Everyone is fully aware of the Emperor's desire to capture Alice and her friends. This has placed the Rice family in a difficult position. They had not been able to provide Alice nor say anything about her whereabouts either. The 5th prince is said to take a liking to Sasha the first day he came to Frost City, and after speaking about it to her father, Donald Rice immediately agreed to it, to his greatest surprise. Originally, he planned to bring the issue to his father if Donald had refused, but since he agreed so readily, he didn't make a fuss about it. The news of him wanting to get married to Sasha was soon sent back to his father, and they approved of it. Now, the day of the wedding was finally here, and he would be getting married to the lady he fell in love with at first sight. The wedding would be taking place in the mayor's manor. It was the best place to hold the ceremony. The 5th prince is known for always enjoying watching battles, so according to his wishes, there would be battles taking place on the platforms that would be created as a form of entertainment after they had tied the knot between himself and his new bride. A huge reward will be given to the winners of the battle, so most of the youths in the city were rushing there. Officials from the top academies will also be present there. A few people who were unfortunate and didn't get into an academy while they were younger might be able to obtain a role in these academies if they performed well. The mayor's manor. It was already filled to the brim with people, all waiting for the wedding ceremony to begin. The Rice family were already present, with a few being absent, Donald and Sasha amongst those absent. Some of the officials from the academies were already here. Due to the Emperor taking charge of all the academies, there wasn't any conflict between them anymore. Of course, the rivalry was still there, but compared to the time when they were actively trying to kill each other, things were better now. The instructors from the Starlight, Royal, and Lunar Academy could be seen all sitting in the same area. The students who attended the ceremony were the same. There were a few individuals from the Starlight and Lunar Academy who still hated the other academy, but they couldn't fight publicly like before, so they were keeping themselves in check. At the front seat of the students from the Starlight Academy, a familiar figure could be seen sitting quietly. It was none other than Jonas. Chapter 583. Rice Manor. A few minutes after Alice left Sasha's room, a young man who looked to be around his mid-20s could be seen walking through the hallway, with Donald walking beside him. He was dressed in white long sleeves and trousers that were designed drawings of flowers with golden silk. His long black hair and beady black eyes complemented his handsome face. "She's here." Donald pointed at the door on their left. "Thank you, Uncle." The young man replied with a smile. "It's okay, Prince Casper," Donald said before turning around. He took a glance at Sasha's door a little longer, and a hint of sadness could be seen in his eyes. But he closed his eyes resolutely before walking away. To him, this was the best option for Sasha given their current situation. If he were to say no and Sasha decided to run away, she would most likely be caught by the people watching them and might be punished. He might put up a tough front in her presence and make it seem like he liked Alice more, but the truth was that he loved his daughters equally. Knock, knock. Casper knocked on the door twice, and without even waiting for Sasha to invite him in, he opened the door and walked in with a big smile. Sasha was sitting on the chair, in the same position as when Alice came in, only this time, there was a slight spark in her eyes. It hadn't been long since Alice left the room, so she was still stunned, but thrilled by what she said. Casper noticed the difference in her countenance, and couldn't help but smile. "I guess you've already seen that I'll take good care of you. Do you like the dress I sent you?" He sat down a few meters away from Sasha. "It's not bad," Sasha replied blandly. "I know you don't approve of this marriage, but I'm not like the other princes. I'm a nice person. I can assure you that you'll come to love me later on," Casper said softly. "If you're such a nice person like you claim, why are you forcing me into marrying you then?" Sasha asked, her words oozing with sarcasm. "Your family's situation is not the best right now," Casper replied after a while. "So you decided to take advantage of it. Wow, just wow. I'm amazed by your nice way of thinking," Sasha mocked. Since Alice left, it was like she had finally regained her old self. For some reason, she was certain that the wedding wouldn't take place, just like her sister promised her. You will not understand. I came to check on you. I'll be leaving now. The ceremony has already started and the stars are here talking. I'll be waiting for you. Casper stood up and walked towards the bed. Sasha snorted after Casper left the room. The mayor's manor. The Lens organization soon came in, with old man Gerald at the forefront of his group. He wore a somewhat wary but expectant look. Dilek was by his side as usual, likewise his wife and children. His appearance attracted the attention of everyone in the arena, given the status of the Lens organization. After he made his appearance, a few more people arrived as well. Presently, every notable family in Frost City was already present here. The arrival of the fifth prince was soon announced, adorned in his white and golden dress. He walked in elegantly with a bright smile on his face. He walked into the hall, heading towards the two seats that were facing the audience. He stood in front of his seat, seemingly waiting for something. A few seconds after his arrival, the arrival of Donald and Sasha Rice was announced. With Sasha walking hand in hand with Donald, it was just like a regular wedding ceremony. Everyone stared at the duo, with a few ladies looking at her enviously. Some of them were wishing they were the ones getting married to the fifth prince, and a few came here well dressed in hopes of catching the eyes of some of the princes that would attend the ceremony. The mayor of Frost City would be the one taking charge of the ceremony. And with Sasha present, he started the ceremony the moment she walked close to where Casper was standing. Donald walked to the side, his expression one of shock and worry. Alice came to him a few minutes before he left the manor, giving him an ultimatum. Either he took the family into hiding for a while, until all this was over, or he would be captured by the Emperor. She vowed to stop the wedding, and knowing full well how stubborn she was, he was 150% certain that she would definitely stop it. The only thing that gave him a sense of relief was that when he tried to stop her, she disappeared without a trace. Since even he couldn't hold her back, then it meant she shouldn't have any issues with escaping if she came. But once the wedding was stopped, he would be stuck in a dilemma, fight or flight. The Emperor would not take this lying, and would most likely see it as a sign of revolt, and will use the opportunity to take down the Rice family. In the crowd, the Earl family could be seen watching the ceremony. Since the Smith family got into trouble with the Emperor, things had been going smoothly for them. They even received help from the Lens organization, something they never thought would happen. They were gradually growing, and have mostly recovered all they lost during their friction with the Smith family. The mayor soon got to the main part of the ceremony. Outside the mayor's manor, two figures could be seen strolling into the compound. Due to the ceremony, no one was stopped from going into the manor, especially if the people were well dressed. It was none other than Gray and Reynolds. Alice was already inside the hall, hiding in plain sight thanks to Void. Just as the mayor was about to join Casper and Sasha, the door of the hall, which was previously opened, suddenly closed shut before it was kicked open again. "I object," Reynolds yelled after kicking the door open. Gray and everyone else in the hall was at a loss for words. The door was literally wide open, and Reynolds found a way to close them, just so he could kick them open again. Chapter 584. Bang! The door to the hall hit the side of the walls, causing a loud noise. Coupled with Reynolds' shout, everyone in the hall turned to look in that direction. Gray and Reynolds walked into the hall slowly. He didn't have his mask on, unlike before, nor did he hide his cultivation stage, so everyone around could easily sense it. Alice, who was watching on the side, couldn't help but facepalm when she saw the duo's entrance. With no other option, she walked out with Void appearing on Gray's shoulder. The mayor paused, staring at the trio walking towards them. Old man Gerald grabbed onto the armrest of the chair he was sitting in, almost destroying it due to the strength he used in holding onto it. Donald, Sasha, Jonas, and the Earl sisters recognized Gray easily, while a few of them stared at Reynolds trying to figure out where they had seen him. It didn't take long before they remembered the poster that was posted on the walls of the city gate. Prince Casper looked at the trio for a while before speaking. "Aren't you three part of the fugitives father is searching for? You and your father are the fugitives," Reynolds retorted. The instructors from the Starlight, Lunar, and Royal Academies stood up, as well as a few high officials from the capital. Prince Casper signaled for them to wait. "I thought you three were hiding. What brought you out?" We were tired of playing hide and seek, so we decided to take a stroll, to stretch our legs, Gray said nonchalantly. What are you doing here? Prince Caspar asked gently. To stop the wedding. What else does it look like? Reynolds replied. The trio has already walked to the middle of the hall, with all eyes on them. A first and second stage Overlord Plane Elementalist, and a Peak Origin Plane Elementalist. You three sure are gutsy, Prince Caspar mocked. Reynolds smiled as his elemental warrior appeared behind him, sending off an intimidating aura. Okay, I'm impressed with that. But the thing is, there is one late-stage Overlord Plane Elementalist here, and at least 10 mid-stages Overlord Plane Elementalists here. If I were to add the Peak Overlord Plane Elementalist that is hiding somewhere in the city, that would be too much for you three. Prince Caspar smiled gently, before adding, just 2 mid-stages Overlord Plane Elementalists are enough. He turned to the instructors, and 2 from the Starlight Academy stepped forward. They all knew Gray and his friends from the competition. Gray, Alice, and Reynolds left quite an impression on them, so they still thought of them once in a while. A middle-aged man and a lady in her mid-30s walked out with a grin. I've been waiting for this for a long time, the man said with an evil grin. Me too, the lady added. Gray, should I? Void asked. Of the group, he was currently the strongest individual, and taking on a few mid-stages Overlord Plane Elementalists was a breeze. No need, I've been waiting to do this for a while now. Gray shook his head with a smile. To think an Origin Plane Elementalist would dare to be so bold to stand against us, the man said mockingly. Haha, a genius who couldn't even break through to the Overlord Plane while his friends have. The lady beside him laughed as they approached the trio. Jonas and the Earl sisters, who were watching from the audience, were at a loss for words when they realized Gray was still in the Origin Plane, especially Jonas. He never expected that Gray would still be in such a low stage. What's he doing? He thought to himself as he watched them. The Earl sisters were worried about the safety of Gray, especially Aldrida, who had some feelings for him. Can't break through to the Overlord Plane. Gray smirked and took a step forward. Boom. With a single step, his aura suddenly surged. It was like a dragon was trying to break through a wall. What? Everyone stood on their feet, staring at Gray as his aura started to skyrocket. Gray's dress was rippling around as he took another step forward. Boom. His aura shot up once again, and a clear sound of something breaking apart was heard aloud. Gray still had his nonchalant expression, but the eyes of everyone in the hall were on the verge of popping out. Even his friends behind him were in shock. Wind started to rotate around Gray as he stood in the same position, sensing the new strength that was circulating across his entire body. He took in a deep breath before exhaling out a white puff of air. The Overlord Plane, he thought to himself, not too excited by his breakthrough. His aura slowly started to die down after his breakthrough, and the duo walking towards them heaved a sigh. The man laughed before saying, all that commotion just for breaking through to the Overlord Plane. Although, I must say you're quite weird given how strangely you broke through. The man paused mid-sentence because something unprecedented was taking place. Gray's aura, which was dwindling, suddenly started to pick up once again, shocking everyone present in the hall. Gray took another step forward, and his cultivation stage, which was previously in the first stage, went up by a stage, getting to the second stage with nothing more than a step. How is this possible? The man stuttered, trying to comprehend what was going on. Gray just broke through to the Overlord Plane. He hadn't even tried to stabilize his cultivation stage, yet he just upped it by 1, and so easily. When he broke through to the Overlord Plane, it took him well over 5 years before he managed to get to the second stage. Although he might look like someone in his late 30s, he was already over 150 years old. Gray's aura started to calm down once again, and a few people present felt relieved. But their expressions changed again when Gray took another step. Impossible. Chapter 585. Gray's aura started to increase once again as he took the third step. It can't be that he's going to break through again. Old man Gerald stood up in disbelief. It was like he was witnessing the most unbelievable thing. If he were to hear about this from someone, he would never believe it. But here he was, witnessing it. He wasn't the only one who was staring in disbelief. Everyone here was feeling the same. Jonas looked at Gray for a while before shaking his head in defeat. The Earl sisters looked at him in awe. Reynolds's mouth. Show off, Void said while resting on Alice's shoulder. He was spooked when Gray's aura suddenly spiked, so he disappeared, appearing on Alice's shoulder. Is he really human? Reynolds couldn't help but ask. Alice smacked him on his shoulder when she heard his question. Seriously? Reynolds rubbed the place he was smacked while replying. I mean, look at him. It is quite difficult to believe something like this is possible. But with him, I believe anything is possible, Alice replied. Gray's aura soon got to the peak of the second stage of the Overlord plane, before easily crossing the threshold, stepping into the third stage of the Overlord plane. With that, his aura started to die down once again, causing huge relief amongst the audience, especially from those in the Royal and the Starlight Academy. Some of the students from the Lunar Academy knew of this senior of theirs, so they naturally felt proud of having such a talented senior. The instructors of the academies, as well as the officials from the capital, exchanged glances, all nodding their heads simultaneously. The few princes who were present stood up as well, walking forward. Now, other than the first two instructors who wanted to fight against Gray and his friends, 5 more instructors have stepped forward as well, all in the mid-stages of the Overlord plane. Just as they prepared to attack, Gray took another step forward. This was his 4th step, and his aura intensified once again. The instructors sent out some attacks, but as soon as they got close to Gray, they lost control over the elemental attack, and it started to circulate around Gray. How's this possible? I lost control of my attack. One of the instructors yelled in horror. Me too, the others exclaimed simultaneously. They looked at Gray as if he was a monster. This was not the first time they had witnessed someone breaking through, and this was also not the first time they had attacked someone who was breaking through. They had killed a few people who were in the middle of breaking through, so there was no way they could explain what just happened. Once an elementalist gets to the Overlord plane, they would obtain the ability to forcibly take control of a weaker elementalist's elemental attack, but it must be of the same element as the elementalist. 8 different elementalists attacked simultaneously, using 4 different elements, yet they all lost control over them. This meant that someone who had all 4 elements and was stronger than they were forcibly took control of them, or different powerful individuals did it. They didn't even think for once that Gray was the one doing it. Gray's aura soon got to the peak for the 3rd stage, and with the same sound of something breaking, he easily crossed through to the 4th stage of the Overlord plane. This was the fastest advancement anyone present here had seen or even heard of. Never in the entire history of the Azure continent has there been a case of someone going from the 1st stage of the Overlord plane to the 4th stage in a matter of mere minutes. Since Gray broke through to the Overlord plane, it hadn't even been up to 3 minutes, yet he was already in the mid-stages. It was unheard of. Unlike the last time, Gray's aura didn't die down. Instead, it continued to surge, and to their horror, he took another step. Bam! Boom! The spot he placed his foot cracked as his aura spiked once again. It soon started to climb from the initial stages of the 4th stage to the intermediate stages, and before long, it got to the late stages, and finally the peak of the 4th stage. Whoosh! Boom! His aura shot up, and he broke through to the 5th stage of the Overlord plane. After he got to the 5th stage, his aura started to drop once again. Everyone didn't drop their guards. Since this was not the first time Gray's aura was acting like this, there is a small possibility that it would come up once again. After waiting for a few seconds, Gray's aura completely receded, and it was almost like he was a regular person who didn't cultivate. The contrast between what they sensed a few seconds ago and now was like the sun and moon, completely different. Old man Gerald was shaking so much that it was almost as if he wanted to explode. He couldn't believe what he just witnessed. A once-in-a-lifetime genius, even Chris doesn't hold a candle in his presence. He muttered as he watched Gray's performance. Prince Caspar was staring at Gray as if he was looking at someone else. How was this even possible? Going from the peak stage of the Origin plane, all the way to the 5th stage of the Overlord plane, with nothing more than 5 steps. Impossible. Reynolds was chuckling excitedly. He already saw how powerful Gray was when he was at the peak of the Origin plane. He didn't even need a word from anyone to guess just how powerful Gray would be now. So what were you saying? Gray opened his eyes as he glanced at the instructors who were laughing at him for being at the peak of the Origin plane a few minutes ago. Currently, he was even a stage above one of them. Chapter 586. The first 2 instructors took a step back unconsciously. They had an immense sense of danger. just by staring at Gray, and they felt if they stared at him for too long, then they might lose their lives without him even lifting a finger. Scared? Well, it's natural given what's about to happen to you. Gray smiled softly, but confidently before taking a step forward. When everyone saw him raising his foot, they paused, as if what happened before was about to continue. But just as Gray's foot was about to touch the ground, his figure vanished from where he was standing. Bang! It was followed with a loud and everyone turned to look at the source of the noise. Lying in front of Prince Caspar was the male instructor from the Starlight Academy, who mocked Gray at the start. Other than those at the late and peak stages of the Overlord plane, no one else knew what happened. It happened too fast for them to keep up with. Weaker than normal. Gray squinted his eyes while lightly moving the fingers on his right hand. He was standing among the instructors, but none of them dared to make a move on him. He tilted his head to the side to stare at the female instructor who mocked him as well, and she started retreating while shaking from fear. Gray vanished once again, but this time, the other instructors didn't stand by and watch. They surrounded the female instructor, since they knew she was his target. Bam! Bang! Gray once again appeared in the middle of the encirclement, and the female instructor crashed at the front of Prince Caspar. Even with the protection of 6 mid-stage Overlord plane elementalists, Gray easily attacked who he wanted so freely as if they didn't exist. You, surrender now and I'll forget that you almost ruined my wedding. Prince Caspar walked past the motionless bodies of the 2 instructors, and ordered Gray, hair, still using the almost. The wedding is called off, now take your trashy self, and get the hell out of here. Alice stepped forward, answering before Gray could. Yeah, you and these weak oldies. Reynolds added while looking at the instructors in contempt. I'll say this once again, surrender now, and I'll forget that you almost ruined my wedding. Prince Caspar said, not taking Alice or Reynolds' words to heart. Looks like you have a problem with your hearing. Since it's like that, I'll make things clearer for you. Gray nodded to Reynolds before he spread out both hands. Reynolds, already understanding what Gray wanted, sent the elemental warrior to stand in front of him, ready to attack at any moment. The instructors who surrounded Gray went into high alert when they saw him spreading his arms. He had already easily taken down someone who was on the same level as them, so they knew all too well that individually, none of them was a match for him. Their best bet now was to group together. However, their greatest problem was figuring out how to deal with Gray's mysterious movement. He would disappear without a trace, only to appear at any place he wants, with no one being able to stop him. With an ability like that, he could easily stroll anywhere and leave without any fear. Now they all knew why he confidently came here to stop the wedding without any fears. Old man Gerald had set up a defensive field in front of his family, and the crowd behind him to protect them from the battle that would ensue any moment from now. He was quite curious as to the true strength of Gray. The remaining mid-stage instructors, as well as those in the early stages of the Overlord plane from the academies, stepped forward, numbering around 43 in total. Alice prepared herself for battle while Void relaxed on her shoulder. No one here could fight against him, so he was the most carefree person here. After him was Gray, since he could use the fusion state to boost his strength to the peak of the Overlord plane, easily defeating everyone here. Even if a peak Overlord plane elementalist comes here right now, he still wouldn't be bothered. The late-stage Overlord plane instructor stepped in front of Prince Caspar. His motive was clear, to protect the prince from any of Gray's underhanded attacks. Even though he still didn't know how Gray was moving, he was confident in his abilities. From his perspective, the only reason Gray was able to easily incapacitate the 2 instructors, even under the protection of the others, was that he took them by surprise. But now that they knew of his strange movement technique, then they could find a way to stop it or defend against it at the very least. Take them down. The late-stage Overlord plane instructor gave the command for the others to attack. Without any more words, attacks soon flew around the hall, heading in Alice, Reynolds, and Gray's direction. Gray, who was surrounded by 6 mid-stage Overlord plane instructors, didn't panic. With his hands still spread apart, a powerful gale pushed the attacks and the instructors back, sending 2 of them flying. Reynolds' elemental warrior raised a lightning shield in front of him, easily blocking most of the attacks, while slashing apart the other attacks. Alice used the same method as Gray, sending out a powerful lightning ball that exploded, as well as raising a fire wall in front of her to block the attacks coming her way. Boom, bang. Gray continued his attack, going after the two instructors who were mid-air. Just as he was about to deal a fatal blow, he realized they seemed familiar. He looked at the insignia on their clothes, and noticed it belonged to the Lunar Academy. These two instructors were some of the ones that stayed even after the principal left. Gray shook his head before kicking the duo. Bang, bang. They crashed on the ground, knocked out cold. The only reason they were still alive was that he felt killing them was a tad too cruel. After all, they stayed in the same academy for a few years. Anyone from the Lunar Academy, I'll advise you to stay out of this. If not, I won't be so lenient on anyone I don't recognize, Gray said softly, but his voice spread across the entire hall. Chapter 587. Gray's warning made some of the instructors halt their attacks, especially those from the Lunar Academy. They already saw how powerful Gray was. If he really decided to take them out, then he would kill them quite easily. Kill him, the late-stage Overlord Plane instructor commanded the instructors, who stopped attacking after hearing Gray's warning. The instructors continued their attack after a few seconds. They initially stopped due to fear, but with the command from the late-stage Overlord Plane instructor, they resumed once again. Gray shook his head. He was standing mid-air, a quite wonderful feeling, since other than when he was using the fusion state, or using the attack media descent, he couldn't really fly. Reynolds' elemental warrior charged into the early stages Overlord Plane instructors, using its lightning sword to reap their lives from them. With a snap of Gray's finger, 3 inscriptions appeared mid-air, and they started attacking the 4 more mid-stage Overlord Plane instructors that surrounded him. They tried to defend against the attack, but with the increase in Gray's cultivation stage, his inscription attack power increased as well. With every attack, he forced back the instructors. The instructors were occupied with the attack from the inscriptions, so they couldn't afford to turn around. Gray soon vanished, and by the time he reappeared, a figure fell from the air, crashing into the ground, causing a crater. One of the 4 instructors was on the ground, motionless. It was unknown if he was alive or dead. The 3 other mid-stage Overlord Plane instructors panicked when they saw this, and retreated towards the area where the late-stage Overlord Plane instructor was standing. Ellis was fighting against 4 early-stage Overlord Plane instructors. She was in the 2nd stage of the Overlord Plane, but she could easily defeat a 3rd-stage Overlord Plane elementalist, even going toe-to-toe against someone in the 4th stage of the Overlord Plane. Boom, bang. She moved swiftly, dodging their attacks while attacking them. Reynolds was fighting while his elemental warrior was also fighting. After his elemental warrior charged into the group of instructors in the early stages of the Overlord Plane, the other mid-stage Overlord Plane instructors who weren't fighting against Gray went over to hold it down. Before they managed to hold it down, it had cut down over 5 instructors in the span of a few seconds. There were some who were from the Lunar Academy, but unlike humans, the elemental warrior didn't have any sentiments towards the academy. Boom, bang. The battle continued to intensify as the roof of the building broke apart. Gray, who was charging towards where the late-stage instructor was standing, was attacked by the instructor as well as the 3 others who came his way. Their attacks were deflected by Gray, heading in the direction of the crowd. Gray turned to look in the direction the attack was going to, and on seeing the Earl sisters seated in that area, he hurriedly flew in that direction, going past the attack and sending it towards a more preferable direction. Sorry for the scare, you all should leave the building, Gray said to the girls with a smile. The attacks were sent in the direction where the instructors fighting against the elemental warrior were gathered. The instructors were forced to block the attack, leaving the elemental warrior. The elemental warrior started its attack on them. Slash! A lightning blade was sent in their direction. As time went on, the audience started to leave the building when they realized staying here wasn't safe for any of them. The only people left were Old Man Gerald, the mayor, Prince Casper, the officials from the capital, the elders from the Rice family, Donald, Sasha, and the instructors fighting against Gray and his friends. The building was already in ruins, but the battle magnified. The late-stage Overlord Plane instructor had joined forces with the 3 mid-stages Overlord Plane instructors to force Gray back. But with Gray's speed, he was dodging all their attacks while sending out powerful attacks in their direction. His inscriptions were helping Ellis and Reynolds fight against the other early-stage instructors, since they were too much for them. The elemental warrior was held back by 3 mid-stage instructors, so it couldn't help them. Void was the only one from the group who wasn't fighting, watching the battle with interest. He was keeping an eye out since he recalled Prince Caspar spoke of a peak Overlord Plane elementalist around. The mayor was also close to the peak of the Overlord Plane, so he was also keeping his eyes on him. "You guys are doing great!" ! He cheered for the trio. Other than Gray and his friends, no one else knew who said this. Void's voice was like that of a small child, so it distracted the fighters, as they tried to find out where the child was watching from. If an Origin Plane elementalist were to get involved in this battle, they would surely die in a matter of seconds, much less a little child who can't even do anything against a regular beast. Boom, bang. Gray spread his hands wide open again while muttering to himself, "Meteor descent." Compared to before, the power of this attack increased exponentially. Multiple large boulders covered in scorching flames appeared out of thin air and started their descent. The heat was so strong that even the air felt like it was on fire. The early stage instructors who were fighting on the ground were scared shirtless when they saw this, and without even thinking, they made a break for it. Ellis and Reynolds were slightly taken aback by the attack. This was the first time they were seeing Gray use this attack, and the power was beyond comparison. Gray didn't stop the attack even with the instructors trying to escape. The range of the attack suddenly started to increase, and the speed of the descent increased, moving faster than the instructors. "This kid's something else," Old Man Gerald commented when he saw the attack. Chapter 588. Swoosh, boom, bang. The attack, seemingly as if it had eyes of its own, started to go after the early stage Overlord Plane instructors. With no way of outrunning them, the instructors were forced to go head-to-head against them. Ellis and Reynolds used the opportunity and started to take out the weaker instructors. Boom, bang. Large explosions rang out in the mayor's manor, and every single individual around a 500 meters radius around the manor has either fled for their lives or are powerful enough to survive the after effects of the battle. "Gray, should I?" Void suddenly asked telepathically. Gray was fighting against 4 people, but he could still sense the figure that was approaching them. It was none other than the peak Overlord Plane elementalist Prince Caspar spoke of. "Try to be as subtle as possible, take it somewhere else." "I want to see their reactions when his aura suddenly disappears," Gray said with an evil chuckle. They weren't the only ones who sensed the peak Overlord Plane elementalist. The instructors as well as the officials from the capital were waiting patiently for this person, since he was stronger than they were, and from the look of things, his appearance will put an end to the battle. Void nodded before casually walking out of the ruined manor. No one even took note of the small black cat. After all, there was an intense battle ongoing. Who would have time to stare at a cute cat? Unbeknownst to them, this little black cat was about to send them into despair. "You can sense that, right? He's coming for you," Prince Caspar said. He was in the early stages of the Overlord Plane, and even with his love for battles, he did not get involved in them. "Heh, if I want you dead, you'll be long dead before he arrives," Gray retorted while dodging the attack of the late-stage Overlord Plane instructor. "Damn it. I need to start taking these guys out one by one," he thought to himself. Just as he dodged that attack, he was hit by another from one of the mid-stage Overlord Plane instructors, which pushed him back slightly and rocked his innards. Luckily, his physical strength was above normal, so he wasn't too affected by it. He continued exchanging blows with them while using the inscriptions to distract them some of the time to make sure they didn't get the chance to hit him with a powerful attack. His wide-range attack had already died down, and Ellis and Reynolds were able to actually take out over 10 instructors within a couple of seconds. Their efficiency was above the roof. It was quite unexpected that 3 youngsters who weren't even 20 years of age yet could cause this much damage. Even though they had taken some hits, it hadn't been too effective, since the attacks that hit them aren't as powerful as when they were released, thanks to Gray's impressive battle awareness. Whenever he notices that his friends were in a tight spot, he would use his inscriptions to reduce the strength of the attack, or even block it for them, so they wouldn't take the full brunt of the attack. It was well known that he was the one doing most of the job here, but without his friends, there is no way he would have been able to fight against everyone here. Just as the powerful aura was getting closer, it disappeared without a trace. What? The late-stage instructor, as well as everyone except Gray and his friends, exclaimed. They perfectly sensed the peak Overlord Plane Elementalist's aura, but it disappeared without a trace all of a sudden. This came as a huge shock to the group, especially the ones fighting against Gray. The opportunity Gray had been waiting for finally presented itself. With all 4 of his opponents in slight disarray, he took the chance. Just like the peak Overlord Plane Elementalist, he too vanished without a trace, and before anyone could figure out what was going on, he appeared behind the late-stage Overlord Plane instructor. His hands were covered with blue flames. He punched the instructor's head with all the strength he could muster. The instructor sensed it, but it was a little too late. He hurried to move his head to the side in a last-ditch effort to dodge the attack. Unfortunately, Gray's attack was just too quick. Bam! Boom! Gray's fist brushed through the side of the instructor's head, and just as hope was about to appear in the instructor's eyes, a large explosion rang out beside him. Thud! The lifeless body of the instructor fell from the sky, crashing into the ground. When the others looked at it, their expressions were that of horror, and they couldn't help but exchange glances. The head of the late-stage instructor was literally blown off his body. His body was currently headless. He killed him even under the pressure of fighting against 3 others. While also helping out his friends, he still found a way to kill him. Prince Caspar muttered in dread. Staring at Gray, all he could see was a cold and ruthless killer. A young man shouldn't be this powerful, or this ruthless. Just how many battles has he gone through that turned him into this? This was the question going through some of the audience's heads. Mayor, where did my protector go? Prince Caspar turned to the mayor, starting to get a little worried for his life. Since Gray could take out the late stage's Overlord Plane instructor, it was only a matter of time before he killed off the mid-stage instructors as well. Once he was done with that, it was evident that he was the next person in the queue. He disappeared. I can't sense him anywhere in the city, the mayor answered, stumped. He's right, that person is not in the city, Old Man Gerald added when he saw that Prince Caspar was about to ask him. What are you all staring at? Stop them now. Kill them if possible. Prince Caspar turned to the officials as well as the mayor. He also turned to look at Old Man Gerald. Even your father can't order me around, boy. Watch your tongue. Old Man Gerald snorted coldly before taking a seat. He wasn't even interested in watching the battle standing anymore. He wanted to enjoy it. It's not every day one gets to see a battle of this scale. Chapter 589. Most of the officials who came from the capital were in the early stages of the Overlord Plane, with a few in the mid-stages. The officials were around 8 in total. Jonas was still watching the battle, and to be honest, he had no interest in getting involved. Since the trial land, he had already concluded that he would never fight against Gray. After getting help from him back at Lapis City, he further reaffirmed his will. Gray was someone he looked up to, even though they were of the same age. For someone to willingly allow another person to take a legacy of a powerful expert, when he or she was not even friends with the said person, was not something everyone could do. Only a few people alive would allow someone they weren't close to growing, when they know they too could take the opportunity. Seeing how things were going, Jonas looked at the few princes who were still present here. They were originally being shielded by the officials, but since the officials were about to get involved in the battle, they would be defenseless. We should leave this place, it's already going past my limit, he said to them. Aren't you going to help them? One of the princes asked. No, I have no interest in this. If you want to leave this place alive, you can either come with me or stand here and hope that your people might win. I mean, they do have a chance. But even if I join in on this battle, the favorites will remain Gray and his friends, Jonas said. The princes looked at each other before following behind Jonas. Altogether, 5 princes were present here, and according to what was said, 3 princesses came, but they were no place near the mayor's manor, so Jonas knew nothing of where they were currently located. With Jonas's protection, the princes left the place without being harmed by the after effects of the explosions raging on. The mayor had charged in Gray's direction, and with his help, Gray was quickly forced on the back foot. The mayor was already very close to the peak of the Overlord Plane, and with Gray's current strength, he can't fight against him alone, much less when being ganged up on. The late-stage instructor he killed was only in the 7th stage of the Overlord Plane, hence he wasn't too pressured by his strength. However, Gray's strength should be between the 7th and the 8th stage of the Overlord plane. The mayor was already in the 9th stage, already past that stage in respect to his strength. Boom, bang. Gray was pushed down, slamming into the ground. He quickly stood up, staring at the group standing mid-air. Time for the real show to begin, Gray mused to himself. With a smile, he suddenly switched places with the mayor who was beside the 3 instructors. As soon as he appeared, a large explosion followed suit. Given the distance, and how sudden it happened, there was no way the instructors were able to get their defenses up in time. One of them didn't even try because he didn't see it coming. Boom. Swoosh. 3 figures were sent flying in 3 different directions, all bruised from the explosion. Luckily, none of them died from it. Gray took action immediately, rushing towards one of the instructors. Before anyone could react, bam, boom, a clean, swift lightning strike hit the instructor on his chest, creating a large hole there. The body of the instructor fell from the sky, with no signs of life. After killing the first one, Gray vanished, heading towards the second one who was trying to escape. Whoosh! Of the 2 instructors, one of them was a wind elementalist, so he used the wind element to increase his speed, trying to get as far away from the fight as possible. Gray went after this instructor in particular. He was confident in being able to catch up to the last instructor when he was done killing this one. There was no way a wind elementalist was faster than a space elementalist, and it was soon shown when Gray appeared in front of the wind elementalist. With his right fist tightly clenched, he sent out a punch towards the incoming instructor. Before the instructor could evade, the punch exploded out, sending out flames that covered a wide range. The instructor's scream followed after the explosion, and before his body came into view, he was held tightly by Gray. Lightning danced across Gray's body, electrocuting the instructor he held by the neck. After a few seconds, the body of the instructor stopped moving. He was dead. The mayor still hadn't been able to fully take in the sudden change in his environment when he heard the second instructor's scream. He was left aghast when he saw how easily Gray killed him. From Gray switching places with him to killing the 2 instructors didn't take up to 30 seconds. This showed just how quickly Gray reacted to the situation he created for himself. The mayor was unable to move because something was bothering him. "How did I get here?" he asked while looking around. To be honest, this change terrified him. People are always scared of the unknown, and since he had never heard of anything like this, he couldn't comprehend how it happened, especially since he didn't see Gray immediately appearing on the same spot he was previously standing. Old Man Gerald and Prince Caspar, who were watching the battle, were the ones who got an inkling of what just happened, especially Old Man Gerald, who had a higher cultivation stage. He saw how Gray and the mayor switched places before Gray exploded out with his immense and monstrous attack prowess. "This kid is like a battle god. You have to admit that." Old Man Gerald turned to look at Prince Caspar as he remarked. Prince Caspar didn't know if to attack Old Man Gerald or not. How could he praise his enemy right in front of him? If not for how high Old Man Gerald's status was, he would have cursed him to die 1,000 deaths right now. Chapter 590. Gray didn't stop after killing the wind elementalist. He immediately gave chase. The last instructor was an earth elementalist, and he was a little slower when compared to the other 2. This was the main reason Gray left him for last. With the mayor stunned and the 2 mid-stage Overlord plane elementalists amongst the officials who still hadn't joined in the battle, this was his best chance of removing the last guy from the picture. Unfortunately, the mayor didn't remain stunned for too long. After seeing Gray going after the last instructor, he quickly charged forward, sending out attacks. He was a lightning elementalist, so he was a tad faster than Gray in regards to speed. Of course, if Gray went full space elementalist, there was no way the mayor would catch up to him. Gray dodged the mayor's attacks, but was forced to slow down when he realized what the officials were planning to do. Instead of them joining the battle against him, they all rushed towards Ellis and Reynolds. Ellis and Reynolds were already in a precarious situation trying to defend against over 10 instructors. And since they weren't inscribers like Gray, they aren't as powerful in a large fight of alone. Of course, they were still slowly killing an instructor from time to time, and Gray's inscriptions have been of great help. However, things took a turn when the officials started their assault on the duo. One of the mid-stage Overlord Plane officials joined the other 3 mid-stage Overlord Plane instructors in trying to take out the Elemental Warrior. They could forcibly destroy it, but only if they were powerful enough. With the Elemental Warrior fighting against 4 people, it started to receive more damages. In the space of a single minute, its left arm was ripped apart by an attack. Reynolds and Ellis were already bleeding as well. Void was not in the area, so there was no way he could help. Gray forgot about the injured instructor and changed his direction. When the mayor saw where he was headed, he quickly followed. The Earth Elementalist who was escaping soon noticed what was happening behind him and stopped. Boom! The mayor attacked Gray with a lightning bolt. "You think I will let you help your friends? You must be joking." He laughed as he continued attacking, halting Gray's movement. "Get out of my way," Gray said calmly as he dodged the attacks. Although he was in a hurry to help his friends, he knew they wouldn't be killed or captured so easily by this group. Even if they were largely outnumbered, they still had a trick or two hidden in their sleeves. Old Man Gerald watched with interest, musing over what Gray's decision would be. Of course, he knew that there was a way for Gray to get there quicker. He had been observing the battle closely, mostly watching Gray's movements. And from what he had seen, there's a special method Gray uses in moving. It was like he would disappear and appear wherever he wished. If I'm not wrong, that's what he used to come into my office. Such a strange kid, he said to himself. Bang! An explosion suddenly occurred in the area where 4 mid-stages Overlord Plane Elementalists were fighting against the Elemental Warrior. What accompanied the explosion was the shrill screams of all 4 Elementalists before they died down. Everyone's attention was brought there, and to the horror of most of them, the 4 Elementalists were dead, and the Elemental Warrior was nowhere to be seen. One of the people who witnessed what happened was the Earth Elementalist Gray was trying to kill. After noticing that Gray had stopped chasing him, he wanted to make Gray regret what he had been doing, so he decided to join in on the battle against the Elemental Warrior. He was about to get there when it suddenly exploded. Watching his fellow instructors being killed so brutally, he couldn't help but curse aloud. "You maniac! You self-destructed the Elemental Warrior. How can you do such a vile thing?" He screamed at the top of his lungs while staring daggers at Reynolds. "Ha ha ha. You're lucky you didn't get close. A shame. If I had known, I would have waited for a few more seconds before doing it." Reynolds laughed with blood running from the side of his mouth. The self-destruct of the Elemental Warrior naturally had its effect on him, a powerful one. But he didn't care. As long as he was able to take out those people, he was satisfied. The greatest disadvantage is that it would take him a few days before he could summon it again. Alice looked at Reynolds and couldn't help but shake her head. "You're too rash when making decisions." "Haha, that's why I'm unpredictable." Reynolds laughed out loud. His present appearance made him look even more like a psychopath. To be honest, he was having a blast. This was the most fun he had experienced since the group came out of the trial land, and he wanted to take full advantage of it. Of course, he also did it as a means to stop the group they were fighting against. First of all, the death of 4 mid-stage Overlord Plane Elementalists would affect their resolve. Not just that, but they also have to be wary of the possibility of Reynolds' being able to summon the Elemental Warrior again, and repeating the same action. Old Man Gerald was laughing at the top of his lungs, enjoying what he was watching so far. "Haha, this group is something else. I should invite them for tea once they've settled their problems with the Emperor." He smacked his leg while laughing. Dilek soon returned to his side. "They are safe in the manor." "Okay, you should sit and watch the battle. It's been something else," Old Man Gerald said, still keeping his focus on the battle. Dilek looked around, and the condition of the mayor's manor, which had been leveled to the ground, as well as the way some of the corpses were, shocked him. He couldn't help taking another look at Gray. He couldn't believe this was the same boy he had to protect from Donald Rice. "At this rate, he shouldn't have any problems with beating you up," he said to Donald, who was still present there. Donald raised his head to look at Gray, unsure of his present emotions. This is the end of this video. Thank you guys for listening. Hope you enjoyed and wish you wonderful rest of the day. The Silent Ruptors out.